The security guard's hand was already on Nathan's shoulder when his 6-year-old daughter looked up at the woman behind the mahogany desk and asked the question that would haunt them both. "Why don't you like my daddy?" Scarlett Whitmore, youngest female CEO in the city, worth more than Nathan would earn in 10 lifetimes, didn't even blink. 3 words. That's all it took to destroy him. Stay out of my life. But here's what nobody knew. In exactly 47 days, that same woman would show up at Nathan's apartment after midnight, mascara streaked down her face, begging him to save her. If you want to see how a broke mechanic brought a billionaire CEO to her knees, stick around until the end. And drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The fluorescent lights in Harbor Mechanics buzzed like dying insects, casting sickly shadows across Nathan Reed's face as he wiped grease from his hands with a rag that had been white sometime around 2019. It was 7:43 p.m. on a Tuesday, and he was already 12 hours into his shift with another 4 to go before he could collect Emma from Mrs. Chen next door. 32 years old, widowed, raising a 6-year-old alone, working 16-hour days just to keep the electricity on. This wasn't how life was supposed to go. Nathan tossed the rag onto his workbench and stared at the 1987 Honda Accord he'd been rebuilding for the past 3 weeks. The owner, some college kid who paid in cash installments, was supposed to pick it up Friday. Except Friday might not exist. Not for Harbor Mechanics. Not anymore. The letter sat in his back pocket, folded and refolded so many times the creases had started to tear. He didn't need to read it again. The words were burned into his brain. Notice of property acquisition. Whitmore Development Corporation. Vacate premises within 60 days. 60 days. He'd been at Harbor Mechanics for 8 years. Started as an oil change guy making minimum wage, worked his way up to lead mechanic, then took over the lease when old Mr. Kowalski retired to Florida. The rent was cheap because the neighborhood was rough, but Nathan didn't mind. His customers were locals, people who couldn't afford dealership prices, who needed their cars to get to work, to take their kids to school, to survive. People like him. Now some corporation wanted to bulldoze the whole block and build luxury condos. Apartments that would rent for more per month than Nathan made in 6. His phone vibrated. Emma's face lit up the screen, a photo from her birthday last month, chocolate cake smeared across her cheeks, missing both front teeth in her smile. "Hey, baby girl." "Daddy, Mrs. Chen says you're working late again." Emma's voice carried that particular tone of disappointment that could crack a man's chest open. "You said we could watch a movie tonight." Nathan closed his eyes. He had said that. Yesterday. And the day before. And probably last week, too. "I know, Em. I'm sorry. But guess what? Tomorrow's Saturday, and I'm taking the whole day off. Just you and me. We can go to the park, get ice cream, whatever you want." "You said that last Saturday." The accusation landed like a punch. Because she was right. He'd said that last Saturday, then got called in for an emergency transmission job that paid triple overtime. Money they needed. Money he couldn't turn down. "Tomorrow's different," Nathan said, hating how hollow it sounded. "I promise." "Okay." Emma didn't believe him. He could hear it in the single syllable. "I love you, Daddy. Love you too, baby. So much." He ended the call and stood there in the empty garage, surrounded by the smell of motor oil and brake fluid and broken promises. Through the grimy window, he could see the city skyline in the distance, glass towers reflecting the sunset, each one representing a world he'd never touch. One of those towers belonged to Scarlett Whitmore. Nathan had Googled her after receiving the eviction notice. 30 years old, self-made billionaire. CEO of Whitmore Development Corporation, which had transformed half the city's waterfront from industrial wasteland into high-end residential paradise. She'd been featured in Forbes, Fast Company, The Wall Street Journal. Profiles called her brilliant, ruthless, visionary. Nobody called her kind. Her company's website had a contact page, but Nathan knew better than to think an email would reach her. People like Scarlett Whitmore didn't read emails from people like Nathan Reed. They had assistants for that. Layers of insulation between themselves and the lives they destroyed with paperwork and corporate signatures. But he had to try something. The legal aid attorney he'd consulted, an exhausted-looking woman who saw 36 cases like his every week, had been blunt. "You're a month-to-month tenant. They followed proper notification procedures. You have no legal recourse. So I just lose everything? She'd given him a look that managed to be both sympathetic and completely detached. You have 60 days to find a new location. I'd suggest you start looking. Nathan had started looking. Every commercial rental in his price range was either condemned, located in areas where he'd get robbed daily, or already leased. The ones that were available wanted first month, last month, security deposit, and proof of income he couldn't fake. He was screwed. The bell above the garage door chimed. Nathan looked up, surprised. He'd locked the front entrance an hour ago. "We're closed," he called out. The door was open. A man in a charcoal suit stepped into the garage, looking around with the kind of casual disdain usually reserved for examining roadkill. Mid-40s, expensive haircut, shoes that probably cost more than Nathan's monthly rent. It wasn't. Nathan grabbed a wrench, not threatening, just holding it. "And I'm closed. Come back tomorrow if you need work done. I'm not here for mechanical services." The man pulled a business card from his jacket. "Marcus Chen, VP of Acquisitions for Whitmore Development. I believe you received our notice?" Nathan's grip tightened on the wrench. "Yeah, I received it." "Excellent. Then you understand that you need to vacate by—" "I understand that you're kicking me out so you can build apartments for people who already have 3 places to live." Marcus's smile didn't waver. "I understand this is difficult. Change always is. But Whitmore Development is prepared to offer you a relocation bonus, $5,000 to expedite your departure and avoid any complications." $5,000. Nathan laughed, sharp and bitter. "You know what my lease says I'm owed if the landlord breaks it? 90 days notice or 3 months rent. That's $7,200. So you're offering me less than I'm legally entitled to and calling it a bonus?" "The building's owner accepted our offer. Your lease is with him, not with us. Technically, get out." "Mr. Reed, get out." Nathan took a step forward. "Before I decide that wrench in my hand isn't just for show." Marcus raised his hands in mock surrender, still smiling that corporate smile. "I'll leave my card. When you're ready to be reasonable, give me a call. The offer expires in 2 weeks." He set the business card on the workbench and walked out, shoes clicking against the oil-stained concrete. Nathan stared at the card for a long moment, then swept it into the trash with one violent motion. Okay. The next morning, Nathan broke his promise to Emma. Not deliberately, never deliberately, but Mrs. Chen called at 6 a.m. Her grandson had been in a car accident. She needed to fly to Sacramento immediately. Could Nathan please pick up Emma early? Which meant he had to bring Emma to the garage, which meant she'd spend her Saturday in a folding chair behind the counter, doing homework while he worked, which meant he was exactly the kind of father he'd sworn he'd never be. Emma didn't complain. She never did. She just packed her backpack with colored pencils and that library book about dolphins she'd read 7 times already and climbed into their rusted-out Ford pickup without a word. "I'm sorry, baby," Nathan said for the 100th time. "It's okay, Daddy." Emma stared out the window. Mrs. Chen's grandson needs her more. The thing that killed Nathan, really killed him, was that Emma understood. At 6 years old, she already knew about sacrifice and disappointment and making do. She already knew that life wasn't fair and promises got broken, and sometimes you just had to accept it. No kid should have to know that. At the garage, Nathan set Emma up in the back office with snacks and her homework. He had 3 cars scheduled, oil changes, routine stuff he could knock out in a few hours. Then maybe they could salvage the afternoon, go to the park like he'd promised, pretend to be a normal family. He was halfway through the second oil change when Emma appeared at his elbow. "Daddy, I finished my math." "That's great, sweetheart. You can start on your reading. Can I ask you something?" Nathan slid out from under the Toyota Camry, wiping his forehead. Emma was holding one of her drawings, a crayon sketch of their apartment building with big flowers in front that didn't exist in real life. "What's up? Why do we have to move?" Nathan's stomach dropped. "What?" "I heard you on the phone last night. You said we might have to move." Emma's eyes were too serious, too worried. "Did I do something wrong? Is it because I asked for the expensive cereal?" "No, baby, no." Nathan pulled her into a hug, leaving grease stains on her purple sweater that he'd have to apologize for later. "You didn't do anything wrong. It's Complicated. Is it about money? 6 years old, and she already associated every problem with money, because that's what she'd learned from him. We can't afford that, and maybe next month, and not right now, sweetie. It's about the garage, Nathan said carefully. The people who own this building sold it to a big company, and that company wants to build something new here, so we have to find a different place for the garage. Can't you just tell them no? It doesn't work like that. Why not? Because they have more money than us, and when people have more money, they get to make the rules. Emma processed this with the seriousness of a Supreme Court justice. That's not fair. No, Nathan agreed. It's not. Can we tell the lady to change her mind? What lady? The one who owns the company. Emma pointed at Nathan's phone, where he'd left a browser tab open to Scarlett Whitmore's Wikipedia page. Her. She looks nice. Nathan glanced at the photo, Scarlett in a designer suit, standing in front of her company headquarters, jaw set in determination, eyes like ice chips. She looked like someone who'd never been told no in her entire life. She's not nice, Em. She's the one making us move. But if you explain, people like her don't care about explanations. Nathan stood up, suddenly exhausted. They don't care about people like us at all. You should still try, Emma said, with the absolute certainty that only children possess. Maybe she just doesn't know we need the garage. Nathan almost laughed, as if Scarlett Whitmore gave a damn whether one mechanic lost his livelihood. As if you could just walk into a billionaire's office and explain that your daughter needed stability, needed a home, needed her father to not be drowning in stress and defeat. But then he looked at Emma's face, hopeful, trusting, still believing that the world could be fair if you just tried hard enough, and he couldn't bring himself to crush that. Maybe, he said. That night, Nathan lay awake until 2 a.m., staring at his ceiling, doing math that didn't work no matter how many times he recalculated. He had $3,400 in savings. First month's rent on a comparable property would run $6,000 minimum, plus security deposit, plus moving costs, plus all the permits and licenses he'd need to transfer. He was $10,000 short, at least. He could take out a loan. Except his credit was already maxed from medical bills after Sarah died. Could ask his parents. Except they were barely scraping by themselves in Arizona. Could give up. Except then what? Get a job at Jiffy Lube making $12 an hour? Lose the independence, the flexibility, the ability to set his own hours around Emma's schedule? His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mr. Reed, this is Marcus Chen. The relocation offer stands until Friday. After that, we'll be forced to pursue formal eviction proceedings. I encourage you to reconsider. Nathan deleted the message without responding. Then he pulled up Scarlett Whitmore's Wikipedia page again and stared at her photo. Emma was right. She did look nice in the picture. Professional, composed, human. But Nathan knew better than to trust photographs. Still, what did he have to lose? Whitmore Development Corporation headquarters occupied floors 42 through 50 of the Apex Tower, a gleaming monolith of steel and glass in the financial district. Nathan had driven past it 1,000 times without really seeing it, just another monument to wealth and power. Now, standing in the lobby with Emma's small hand gripping his, he felt like an insect that had wandered into a cathedral. Everything was marble and chrome and surfaces so polished he could see his reflection, rumpled jeans, old flannel shirt, work boots with oil stains that wouldn't come out. Emma wore her best dress, the navy blue one with white flowers that Sarah had bought her 2 Christmases ago. She'd already grown 3 inches since then. The hem hung above her knees now, and the sleeves were getting tight. It's really tall, Emma whispered, staring up at the atrium ceiling 50 feet above them. Yeah, baby, it is. Nathan approached the security desk, where a man in a pristine uniform looked up with the kind of polite disinterest reserved for people who clearly don't belong. Can I help you? I need to see Scarlett Whitmore. The security guard's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Amusement, maybe. Do you have an appointment? No, but Ms. Whitmore doesn't take walk-in meetings. If you'd like to schedule something, you can contact her office through the website. I tried that. Nobody responded. Nathan pulled out the eviction notice. This is important. Her company is evicting my business, and I just need 10 minutes to... Sir, I can't help you. The guard was already looking past Nathan to the next person in line. You'll need to go through proper channels. Please. Nathan hated the desperation in his voice, hated that Emma was hearing it. Just ask her. Nathan Reed, Harbor Mechanics. Tell her I drove 40 minutes to get here, that I brought my daughter, that I'm not leaving until... Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside. Daddy? Emma tugged his hand. Maybe we should go. But Nathan couldn't move, because this was it. This was his only play. If he walked out of this building now, he was done. Finished. And some part of him, the part that was tired of being powerless, tired of watching rich people make decisions that destroyed lives without consequences, refused to back down. I'm not leaving, Nathan said quietly. Not until she sees me. The guard reached for his radio. Security, we have a situation in the main lobby. I'm not making a scene. I just want to talk to her. You need to leave now or I'll have you removed. Daddy, please. Emma's voice cracked. Let's go. But Nathan was already moving toward the elevators, pulling Emma with him. The security guard shouted something. Footsteps echoed across the marble floor. Nathan jabbed the elevator button, once, twice, knowing it was pointless, knowing he'd never make it, but unable to stop himself from trying. A hand grabbed his shoulder. 2 more security guards materialized from nowhere. Sir, you need to come with us. I just want 10 minutes. Nathan's voice bounced off the marble walls. 10 minutes to explain that people's lives are being destroyed, that families are being thrown out so you can build apartments for people who already have everything. People in expensive suits were staring now. Someone had their phone out, recording. Emma was crying, trying to pull away. Daddy, stop! Nathan let the security guards take his arms. What else could he do? Fight them? Get arrested in front of his daughter? They were escorting him toward the exit when a voice cut through the lobby like a knife through silk. Wait! Everyone froze. Scarlett Whitmore stood near the elevators, flanked by 2 assistants carrying tablets and coffee cups. She wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Nathan's truck, her dark hair pulled back in a style that was somehow both severe and elegant. In person, she was smaller than he'd expected, maybe 5'6" without the heels, but she carried herself like someone who'd never questioned whether she belonged anywhere. She looked at Nathan the way someone might look at a stray dog that had wandered into their yard. Curious. Slightly annoyed. Already calculating how to handle the situation with minimal inconvenience. Let him go, she said. The security guards released Nathan's arms but didn't step back. Scarlett walked closer, her heels clicking against the marble. She stopped 6 feet away, close enough to speak without shouting, far enough to maintain clear social distance between their worlds. You're Nathan Reed. It wasn't a question. Harbor Mechanics. Yes. And this is your daughter. Emma tried to hide behind Nathan's leg, but Scarlett's gaze found her anyway. For a moment, just a flash, so quick Nathan almost missed it, something shifted in Scarlett's expression, something that might have been recognition or regret or pain. Then it was gone. You received notice of eviction 60 days ago, Scarlett said. You were offered a relocation bonus, which you declined. My VP of Acquisitions attempted to negotiate with you, and you threatened him with a weapon. It was a wrench, and I didn't threaten him. What do you want, Mr. Reed? The question landed with the weight of genuine curiosity, as if she actually couldn't understand why someone would drive 40 minutes and storm a corporate headquarters just to delay the inevitable. Nathan took a breath. I want you to understand that Harbor Mechanics isn't just a building. It's people's livelihoods. My customers, they're working-class folks who can't afford dealership prices. Single mothers trying to keep their cars running so they can get to work. Elderly people on fixed incomes. If you shut me down, they lose access to affordable repairs. There are other mechanics in the city, not in that neighborhood, and not who'll let people pay in installments or trade services when they can't afford cash. That's not my problem. The words were delivered without malice, just a simple statement of fact. Nathan felt something break inside his chest. No, I guess it's not. Scarlett glanced at her watch, some designer piece that probably cost more than Nathan's entire savings account. Is that all? Please? The word came out raw. I'm not asking you to cancel the project, just give me more time. 6 months to find another location, save up enough for deposits and permits. That's all I'm asking. The development timeline is fixed. We break ground in 73 days. Then help me find somewhere else. Your company has real estate connections. You could make a phone call, smooth the way. Why would I do that? Nathan stared at her. Because it's the right thing to do? Scarlett's laugh was soft and utterly without humor. Mr. Reed, I admire your determination, I do. But I'm running a business, not a charity. What you're asking for isn't my responsibility. What about basic human decency? Decency doesn't build cities. Vision does. Capital does. Hard decisions do. Scarlett turned to her assistants. We're done here. Wait! Nathan moved forward, and immediately the security guards were on him again. Please, just listen. Emma was fully crying now, clutching Nathan's hand with both of hers. Scarlett stopped, turned back. And when she spoke, her voice was colder than anything Nathan had ever heard. Stay out of my life, Mr. Reed. 4 words. That's all it took. The security guards were already pulling Nathan toward the exit. Emma stumbled, nearly fell, caught herself. Someone in the crowd was still recording. Nathan could see it playing out. Another viral video of a poor person getting dragged out of a rich person's building. Another day's outrage that would fade by tomorrow. As they pushed through the revolving doors into the afternoon heat, Nathan looked back one last time. Scarlett Whitmore was already walking toward the elevators, her assistants trailing behind like satellites. She didn't look back, didn't hesitate, just kept moving forward, on to her next meeting, her next decision, her next opportunity to reshape the world according to her vision. Nathan had been dismissed, erased, like he'd never been there at all. Emma didn't speak during the drive home. She sat in the passenger seat, buckled in, staring out the window at the city passing by. Her earlier tears had dried, leaving tracks through the dust on her cheeks. Nathan had tried to clean her face, but she'd pulled away. I'm sorry, baby, he said for the dozenth time. Nothing. You were right. I should have just emailed. Should have gone through proper channels. I just thought, you said people like her don't care about people like us. Emma's voice was small and flat. You were right. Nathan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. They drove the rest of the way in silence. At home, Emma went straight to her room without asking for a snack or wanting to watch TV. Nathan stood in the doorway, watching her curl up on her bed with the stuffed elephant Sarah had given her when she was born. Threadbare now, one ear resewn 3 times, but still her most precious possession. Em? I'm tired, Daddy. Okay, I'll make dinner in a little bit. I'm not hungry. Nathan wanted to argue, to insist she eat something, to maintain at least the pretense that he had control over basic parenting responsibilities. But he was so goddamn tired himself. I love you, he said. Emma didn't answer. Nathan closed the door and slumped against the hallway wall, sliding down until he sat on the worn carpet. Through the thin walls, he could hear Mrs. Chen's TV. She must have gotten back from Sacramento. The sound of canned laughter from some sitcom filtered through like a mockery. His phone buzzed. Another text from Marcus Chen. Saw the video from the lobby. You made your point, but the offer still expires Friday. $5,000 and a smooth transition, or we do this the hard way. Your choice. Nathan deleted it without responding. Then he pulled up YouTube and searched Nathan Reed Whitmore Development. The video was already there, posted 20 minutes ago by someone who'd been in the lobby. The title read, Single Dad Destroyed by Billionaire CEO. Nathan forced himself to watch. There he was, looking desperate and pathetic, begging a woman who clearly couldn't care less. The security guards grabbing him, Emma crying, and Scarlett, cold, composed, utterly unmoved, delivering that final line. Stay out of my life. The video had 47,000 views already. The comments were exactly what he expected. This is why we eat the rich. That poor little girl my heart is breaking. CEOs are sociopaths, change my mind. Imagine being so rich you can't even pretend to care. There were others too. Defending Scarlett, saying Nathan was entitled, that he should have read his lease, that you can't run a business on sentiment. Nathan closed the app and threw his phone across the room. It bounced off the couch and landed on the floor, screen down. He didn't bother checking if it cracked. What was he supposed to do now? Take the $5,000 and disappear? Find some minimum wage job and give up everything he'd built? Move Emma to a worse neighborhood, a worse school, a worse life? Or fight an eviction he couldn't win, drain what little savings he had on legal fees, and end up exactly where he'd be anyway, just broker and more desperate? There were no good options. There never had been. Nathan sat there on his apartment floor as the sun set outside his window, painting the peeling walls in shades of amber and rust. Somewhere in this city, Scarlett Whitmore was probably in her penthouse, sipping wine, reviewing tomorrow's schedule, completely unbothered by the life she'd casually destroyed that afternoon. And Nathan was just trying to figure out how to tell his 6-year-old daughter that the world was cruel and unfair, and no amount of hoping would change that. His phone rang. He ignored it. It rang again. With a sigh, Nathan retrieved it from the floor. Unknown number. Probably a reporter who'd seen the video, looking for a quote to make the story juicier. He answered anyway. What? Mr. Reed? A woman's voice, professional but uncertain. This is Jennifer Cow from Channel 7 News. I saw the video from today and I was wondering if you'd be willing to do an interview. No. It would be a chance to tell your side of the story. We could help raise awareness about what Whitmore Development is doing to small businesses. I said no. Nathan was about to hang up when something occurred to him. Wait, you want to run a story about this? Absolutely. Corporate greed versus the little guy? It's exactly the kind of human interest piece our viewers connect with. And you'd paint me sympathetically, make Scarlett Whitmore look bad? A pause. We'd present the facts and let viewers draw their own conclusions. Which meant, yes. Nathan thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. No thanks. I'm not interested in revenge. I just want to keep my business. He hung up before she could respond. Because that was the thing that people didn't understand. Nathan didn't hate Scarlett Whitmore. He didn't want to destroy her reputation or turn her into a viral villain. He just wanted her to see him, to see Emma, to recognize that her decisions had consequences for real people with real lives. But that was never going to happen. People like Scarlett Whitmore didn't see people like Nathan Reed. They saw obstacles or opportunities or numbers on a spreadsheet, but never people. Emma's door creaked open. She padded into the living room in her pajamas, elephant tucked under her arm. Daddy? Yeah, baby? I'm sorry I was mean. Nathan opened his arms, and Emma climbed into his lap like she used to when she was 3. She was getting too big for this, all elbows and knees, but Nathan held her anyway. You weren't mean, he said. You were right. Is the garage really going away? Yeah, probably. Where will we go? I don't know yet, but we'll figure it out. We always do. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then, Daddy? That lady today. She looked sad. Nathan almost laughed. She looked a lot of things, Em, but sad wasn't one of them. No, she did. When she looked at me, just for a second, Emma pulled back to look at Nathan's face. Like she wanted to cry, but forgot how. Nathan didn't know what to say to that, so he just held his daughter and stared out the window at the city lights and wondered how the hell they were going to survive the next 60 days. He didn't know it yet, but in exactly 47 days, Scarlett Whitmore would stand in his doorway after midnight, makeup streaked and voice broken, and Emma's observation would turn out to be the only true thing anyone had said about her in years. But that was still 47 days away. Tonight, Nathan Reed was just a mechanic who'd lost a fight he never had a chance of winning, and Scarlett Whitmore was just a CEO who'd done what CEOs do. Made the hard choice, the profitable choice, the choice that kept her company growing and her shareholders happy. Tomorrow, Nathan would start looking for a new location. He'd call in favors, beg for extensions, crunch numbers that didn't add up. Tomorrow, Scarlett would forget Nathan Reed existed. But tonight Emma fell asleep in his arms, and Nathan sat there in the dark, holding his daughter and trying to remember that this crushing weight in his chest wasn't defeat. It was just life. And life, he'd learned, had a way of breaking you down until you forgot what it felt like to stand up straight. Outside his window, the city hummed with possibility, lights and laughter and 1,000 stories unfolding simultaneously. Somewhere out there, people were falling in love, celebrating promotions, toasting to new beginnings. And in a penthouse 40 stories above the streets, Scarlett Whitmore was standing at her own window, staring at the same city, feeling nothing at all. Or so Nathan assumed, because he didn't know about Mason, about the hospital, about the phone calls Scarlett ignored from doctors while she sat in board meetings, making decisions that reshaped skylines. He didn't know that she'd gone home that night and thrown up in her marble bathroom, disgusted with herself but unable to name why. He didn't know that she'd pulled up the lobby security footage and watched it 3 times, studying Emma's face, wondering when she'd become the kind of person who could make a 6-year-old cry without flinching. He didn't know any of that. All he knew was that he'd tried, he'd fought, and he'd lost. The story should have ended there, but it didn't. Because 47 days later, someone would knock on Nathan's door after midnight. And when he opened it, the last person he'd ever expected to see would be standing there, trembling and broken and desperate, asking him to teach her how to be human again. The days after the lobby incident blurred together like watercolors left in the rain. Nathan stopped counting how many commercial properties he'd looked at, stopped tallying the rejections. Each one landed the same way, a polite email explaining that they'd decided to go with another applicant, or a phone call that never came after the landlord heard his credit score, or simply silence that stretched until he got the message. By day 37, he'd expanded his search radius to 40 minutes outside the city. The spaces were worse: crumbling concrete, broken windows, neighborhoods where he'd need to install security cameras just to keep his tools from walking away overnight. And they still wanted deposits he couldn't afford. Emma had stopped asking about the garage. She'd learned, the way kids learn things they shouldn't have to, that some topics made Daddy's jaw tighten and his eyes go distant. So she just did her homework without being asked and didn't complain when dinner was cereal 3 nights in a row because Nathan forgot to buy groceries. He was failing her. He knew it. But knowing didn't give him more hours in the day or more money in his account or more energy to be the parent she deserved. The garage itself had taken on the atmosphere of a wake. His regular customers came by with condolences disguised as small talk, asking where he'd land, promising they'd follow him wherever he went. Nathan smiled and lied and said he had options lined up. No point dragging anyone else down with his sinking ship. On day 42, Mrs. Chen knocked on his door at 7 in the morning. "Nathan, you awake?" He wasn't, but he opened the door anyway, squinting against the hallway light. Mrs. Chen stood there in her bathrobe, holding her phone. "You need to see this," she said. Nathan took the phone. It was a local news article dated that morning. Whitmore Development breaks ground on luxury waterfront project. The photo showed Scarlett in a hard hat and designer jeans, holding a chrome shovel, surrounded by city officials and photographers. "They're starting early," Mrs. Chen said quietly. "The article says they moved up the timeline, breaking ground next week instead of waiting until after your lease ends." Nathan scrolled through the article. There it was, buried in the 3rd paragraph. The accelerated schedule allows Whitmore Development to capitalize on favorable weather conditions and meet investor expectations for an earlier completion date. Favorable weather conditions. That's what they were calling it. "Nathan?" He handed back the phone. "Thanks for showing me." "What are you going to do?" "Same thing I've been doing. Look for a place. Pack up. Move on." Mrs. Chen looked at him with the kind of pity that made Nathan want to punch something. "I'm sorry." "Yeah, me too." He closed the door and stood there in his apartment, listening to Emma's soft breathing from her bedroom. The sun was just starting to rise, painting everything in shades of gray that would burn off into another bright, indifferent day. Nathan walked to his kitchen and made coffee with hands that had started shaking somewhere around day 30 and hadn't stopped since. He'd cut back on sleep to take more night shifts, trying to save every possible dollar before the end. The exhaustion had settled into his bones like sediment. His phone buzzed. A text from Tommy, one of his mechanics. "Boss, saw the news. This is bullshit. We doing anything about it?" Nathan stared at the message for a long time before responding. Nothing to do. Start looking for other jobs. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. "This isn't right, man, I know." "So we just roll over?" Nathan set down his phone without responding. What was he supposed to say? That he'd already tried fighting and all he got was humiliated on camera and turned into a viral cautionary tale? That people like them didn't win against people like Scarlett Whitmore? The coffee finished brewing. Nathan poured a cup and walked to his window, looking out at the city waking up. Somewhere out there, Scarlett was probably in some morning meeting, reviewing architectural renderings, making decisions that would reshape entire neighborhoods. She'd probably forgotten Nathan existed 30 seconds after security escorted him from her building. And why wouldn't she? He was nobody. A single data point in her company's quarterly growth projections. Already written off. Already erased. The unfairness of it sat in Nathan's chest like a stone. Not that she'd destroyed his business. He understood capitalism, understood progress, understood that nothing lasted forever. But that she'd looked at Emma's crying face and felt nothing. That she could go home that night and sleep soundly while Nathan lay awake calculating which bills to pay and which to let slide. That she lived in a world where people were abstractions, obstacles, numbers to be managed and moved and forgotten. Emma padded into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes. She'd slept in her clothes again, something she'd started doing lately, as if staying ready for whatever came next. "Morning, baby." "Morning." She climbed onto the counter stool. "Can we have pancakes?" Nathan checked the fridge. No eggs, no milk. He'd meant to go shopping yesterday, but got distracted by another rejection email. "How about we go out for pancakes?" he said. "My treat." Emma's face lit up in a way that made Nathan's chest ache. When had breakfast at Denny's become a special occasion? "Really?" "Really, go get dressed." She ran back to her room and Nathan heard her singing to herself, some song from that animated movie she'd watched a dozen times. The sound of her happiness, simple and uncomplicated, was almost unbearable. He pulled on jeans and the least wrinkled flannel from his closet, then grabbed his wallet. $43. Enough for pancakes and maybe gas for the rest of the week if he was careful. They were halfway out the door when Nathan's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. "Hello? Mr. Reed, this is David Park from Greenfield Properties. We spoke last week about the commercial space on Hamilton Avenue." Nathan's heart jumped. Hamilton Avenue was decent. Not great, but not terrible. 35 minutes from their apartment. The space needed work, but the rent was almost reasonable. "Yes, I remember. I wanted to let you know we've made a decision on the lease." David's voice carried that particular tone that Nathan had learned to recognize. Apologetic but firm. "Unfortunately, we're going to pass. We had another applicant with stronger financials." "Right, of course. Thanks for letting me know." "I'm sorry. I know you were really hoping." Nathan hung up. Emma was watching him from the doorway. "Daddy?" "Just work stuff, baby. Come on, let's get those pancakes." But the moment was gone. Emma could read him too well, could see the defeat he tried to hide. She took his hand as they walked to the truck, and her grip felt less like a child's trust and more like an attempt to hold him together. At Denny's, Nathan ordered coffee and picked at hash browns, while Emma worked through a short stack with enough syrup to drown a small animal. The waitress, Denise, who'd been working there since before Emma was born, refilled his cup without asking. "You look like hell, hun," she said quietly. "Feel worse." "The garage thing?" News traveled fast in this neighborhood. Nathan shouldn't have been surprised. "Yeah." Denise glanced at Emma, who was building a fort out of sugar packets. "You got something lined up?" "Working on it." Denise had raised 3 kids alone after her husband left. She knew a polite lie when she heard one. "You let me know if you need anything." "I will, thanks." She squeezed his shoulder and moved to the next table, and Nathan felt that particular shame that came from being someone people pitied. His phone buzzed again, another unknown number. Nathan sent it to voicemail. Then it buzzed again. "Sorry, baby. I need to take this." He stepped outside into the parking lot. "Hello? Nathan Reed? Who's asking?" "My name is Jennifer Park. I'm a real estate attorney. I represent Harbor Mechanics and I didn't hire a lawyer." "I know. Someone hired me on your behalf. They've asked to remain anonymous, but they've authorized me to pursue an injunction against Whitmore Development's early construction start. The accelerated timeline violates the original eviction notice period, which gives us grounds to— Wait, slow down. Someone hired you? Who? I'm not at liberty to say, but they've covered my retainer and authorized me to file emergency motions to delay construction until the original 60-day period expires. It's not much, but it might buy you some time." Nathan leaned against his truck, trying to process. Why would someone do that? Apparently, the lobby video got some attention. Sometimes people want to help, but don't want publicity. Are you interested in proceeding? Nathan should have said yes immediately. Should have grabbed onto this lifeline without question. But something about it felt wrong. Accepting charity from a stranger, becoming someone's pet cause, letting his humiliation turn into someone else's good deed. "I need to think about it," he said. "Mr. Reed, we have a very narrow window here. If we don't file by Monday," I said, "I need to think about it." He hung up and stood there in the parking lot watching traffic pass on the street. A black sedan pulled into a space 3 cars down. The driver didn't get out, just sat there with the engine running. Nathan's phone buzzed with a text from the attorney. "I understand this is complicated, but please consider it. You have until Monday at 5 p.m. After that, the opportunity is gone." Through the diner window, Nathan could see Emma finishing her pancakes, syrup on her chin, completely unaware that her father's entire world was held together with duct tape and desperation. The black sedan was still there, engine idling. Nathan walked back inside, paid the check with money he couldn't afford to spend, and took Emma home. The sedan didn't follow them, but Nathan kept checking his rearview mirror anyway, paranoid in a way he couldn't quite name. That afternoon, while Emma colored at the kitchen table, Nathan pulled up the lobby video again. It had 2 million views now. The comments had evolved from outrage into think pieces about income inequality and corporate responsibility. Someone had created a GoFundMe. It had raised $11,000 before Nathan even knew it existed. He'd shut it down immediately, returned every donation. The idea of strangers funding his failure made his skin crawl. But now someone had hired him a lawyer. Someone was watching. Nathan closed his laptop and tried to focus on sorting through garage inventory, deciding what to keep, what to sell, what to throw away. Every tool had a memory attached. The socket set he'd bought with his first real paycheck. The hydraulic jack he and Sarah had picked out together, back when they were planning their future. The rolling creeper that old Mr. Kowalski had given him with a handshake and a "make something of yourself, kid." All of it would fit in a storage unit. If he could afford a storage unit. By the time Emma went to bed, Nathan had made it through approximately 1 toolbox before giving up. He sat on his couch with a beer he'd been nursing for an hour and stared at nothing. His phone rang at 10:47 p.m. Unknown number. Nathan answered with a sigh. "If you're another reporter, I'm not interested." Silence on the other end. Then breathing, quick and shallow. "Hello? A woman's voice, cracking. "Is this Nathan Reed?" "Yeah, who is this?" More silence. Nathan was about to hang up when she spoke again. "I saw your video, the one from the lobby. Congratulations. You and 2 million other people. I need..." She stopped, started again. "Do you ever feel like you're drowning and everyone around you thinks you're swimming?" Nathan sat up straighter. The woman sounded wrecked, drunk, maybe, or crying, or both. "Are you okay?" "No." She laughed, brittle and broken. "No, I'm really not. Do you need me to call someone? Are you safe?" "Safe." She repeated the word like she was testing it. "I don't know what that means anymore. Where are you?" "It doesn't matter. Listen, I don't know who you are, but if you're in trouble, I'm the person who hired your lawyer." The words came out in a rush. The injunction, that was me. And I know it's not enough. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I needed to do something because I can't keep being... She stopped. Nathan heard her breathing, ragged and uneven. "Who are you?" Click. She'd hung up. Nathan stared at his phone. The call had lasted 93 seconds. No caller ID, no way to trace it back. A woman who'd seen the video, who'd hired him a lawyer, who sounded like she was falling apart. Nathan tried to convince himself it didn't matter. Some stranger with guilt or savior complex or too much money and not enough sense. It didn't change anything, didn't solve his problems. But sleep didn't come easy that night. He lay in bed listening to the sounds of his building. Mrs. Chen's TV through the wall, someone's footsteps in the apartment above, the distant wail of sirens. And he thought about that woman's voice, about the particular quality of desperation he'd heard there. He knew that sound. He'd heard it in his own voice often enough lately. At 12:47 a.m., someone knocked on his door. Nathan grabbed his phone, ready to call 911 if needed. He crept to the door and looked through the peephole. A woman stood in the hallway, dark hair falling around her face, designer coat over what looked like pajamas. No makeup, eyes red and swollen. It took Nathan 3 full seconds to recognize her. Scarlett Whitmore. He stood there frozen, hand on the doorknob, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. This couldn't be real. He was asleep, dreaming, hallucinating from exhaustion. She knocked again, softer this time. Nathan opened the door. Up close, without the armor of her boardroom persona, Scarlett looked nothing like the woman who'd dismissed him from her lobby. She looked small, young, completely hollowed out. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know it's late. I know I have no right to be here. But I didn't know where else to go." Nathan should have slammed the door, should have told her to leave, to never come near him or Emma again, to take her guilt and her money and her problems somewhere else. Instead, he stepped aside. "Come in." Scarlett walked past him into the apartment, and Nathan closed the door behind her, wondering what the hell he'd just done. She stood in his living room, looking around at the secondhand furniture and Emma's toys scattered on the floor and the stack of unpaid bills on the kitchen counter, taking in his life in all its modest, struggling reality. "I'll make tea," Nathan said, because he didn't know what else to do. "You don't have to sit down before you fall down." She sat on the edge of his couch, like she might need to run at any moment. Nathan put the kettle on and grabbed 2 mugs from the cabinet, trying to process the surreal fact that Scarlett Whitmore, billionaire CEO, the woman who destroyed his business and told him to stay out of her life, was currently sitting in his apartment after midnight looking like she'd been crying for hours. "How did you find my address?" he asked. "I have your file. The eviction paperwork." "Right, of course." Nathan leaned against the counter. "You want to tell me what you're doing here?" Scarlett opened her mouth, closed it. Her hands were shaking. "Take your time," Nathan said, softer now. "I have a son." The words came out flat. "His name is Mason. He's 5, and he's in the hospital." Nathan felt something shift in his chest. "I'm sorry. He has a rare autoimmune disorder. The doctors say he'll be fine eventually, but right now he's going through treatment that makes him sick and weak and scared." Scarlett's voice cracked. "And he asks for me when I'm not there. The nurses tell me he cries at night, and I—" She stopped, pressing her palms against her eyes. Nathan poured hot water over tea bags and brought both mugs to the coffee table. He sat in the armchair across from her and waited. "I'm a terrible mother," Scarlett continued. "I miss bedtimes. I forget school events. I prioritize board meetings over birthday parties, and I justified it by telling myself I was building something important, creating a legacy, that my work mattered." She laughed bitterly. "But Mason doesn't care about my company. He just wants his mom, and I don't know how to be that person anymore." Nathan sipped his tea and said nothing. "When you came to my office," Scarlett said, "and you brought your daughter, and she asked me why I didn't like you." Her voice broke completely. "I saw myself. In your eyes, in her eyes. I saw what I'd become." "And it took you 47 days to figure that out?" "No." Scarlett looked at him directly for the first time. "I figured it out immediately. I just didn't know what to do about it. So I did nothing. Like I always do. Like I've been trained to do. Compartmentalize. Move forward. Don't let emotion interfere with business." "Then what changed?" "Mason asked me if I loved my job more than him." The words hung in the air between them. "What did you tell him?" Nathan asked quietly. "I told him of course not. I told him I loved him more than anything." Scarlett's hands wrapped around the mug, seeking warmth. "And he looked at me with these enormous eyes and said, 'Then why does your job get to see you more than I do?'" Nathan closed his eyes briefly, thinking of Emma asking similar questions in different words. "Why do you work so much, Daddy? Don't you want to be with me?" 5 years old, Scarlett continued, "and he already understands that I'm choosing work over him, that my priorities are broken, that I'm failing him in the most fundamental way a parent can fail their child." "You're here now," Nathan said. "I'm here because I looked at your daughter crying in my lobby and saw my son. I'm here because I spent the last 6 weeks watching Mason go through hell while I sat in meetings discussing profit margins. I'm here because tonight he was crying so hard he made himself throw up, and the nurse had to give him sedatives to calm him down, and I realized—" She stopped, breathing hard. "I realized I've forgotten how to be human." Nathan didn't know what to say to that, so he drank his tea and let the silence stretch. "I hired your lawyer," Scarlett said after a moment. And I know that doesn't fix anything. I know it's not nearly enough. But I needed to do something to prove to myself that I'm still capable of making a choice that isn't about money or strategy or corporate growth. Why me? Because you reminded me of who I used to be, before I started measuring success in quarterly earnings, when I still believed that how you treated people mattered more than what you achieved. She set down her mug and stood up, pacing to the window. My father was a construction worker, she said, died when I was 12. Fell from scaffolding on a job site where the company cut corners on safety equipment. My mother cleaned houses to pay the bills. We lived in a neighborhood not much different from this one. She gestured vaguely at the window. And I swore I'd never be poor again, never be powerless, never be at the mercy of people who valued profit over people. So you became exactly what you hated. Scarlett turned to face him. Yes. The honesty of it surprised Nathan. He'd expected defensiveness, justification, not this raw acknowledgement. What do you want from me? He asked. I don't know. Scarlett crossed her arms, hugging herself. Maybe permission to be human again. Maybe someone to tell me how to fix this. Maybe just... She laughed softly. Maybe just someone who won't treat me like a CEO for 5 minutes. Nathan looked at her, really looked. Past the designer clothes and the corporate reputation and the net worth that could buy a small country. He saw exhaustion, fear, a mother who was drowning and didn't know how to ask for help. He thought about sending her away, about protecting his own peace, his own anger, his justified resentment. Instead, he said, "Tell me about Mason." Scarlett blinked, surprised. What? Your son. Tell me about him. What is he like? What makes him laugh? She stood there for a moment, processing the question. Then slowly, she sat back down. He loves dinosaurs, she said softly. Specifically velociraptors. He has 17 plastic ones that he lines up in order of size every night before bed. And he's convinced they're real and just hiding until humans aren't paying attention. Smart kid. He is. Too smart sometimes. He asks questions I don't know how to answer. Scarlett's expression softened. Like why the sky is blue but space is black, or where people go when they die, or why some kids have 2 parents and he only has 1. His father? Not in the picture. Never was. My choice. She paused. One of many choices I'm starting to question. Nathan refilled their mugs, and they sat there in his dim apartment while Scarlett talked about Mason, about his obsession with building elaborate pillow forts, his hatred of green vegetables, his habit of narrating his own life like he was the star of an adventure movie. And Nathan listened, occasionally sharing stories about Emma, about her determination to read chapter books before she was ready, about the time she tried to give half her Halloween candy to their elderly neighbor because he looked lonely, about the questions she asked that broke his heart because he didn't have good answers. Somewhere around 2 a.m., Nathan realized they'd stopped being CEO and mechanic. They were just 2 exhausted single parents trying to figure out how to not screw up their kids. Can I ask you something? Scarlett said. Sure. How do you do it? Raise a child alone while working yourself to death. How do you not completely fall apart? Nathan laughed, tired and genuine. Who says I don't fall apart? I feed Emma cereal for dinner 3 times a week. I forget to sign permission slips. I snap at her when I'm stressed. I'm barely keeping it together. But you're present. You're there for her. Because I don't have a choice. It's just me and her. So yeah, I work too much and I'm exhausted all the time. But at the end of the day, I come home. I read her bedtime stories even when I can barely keep my eyes open. I help with homework even though math above 4th grade makes my brain hurt. Because that's what you do. What if I don't know how? Then you learn. Nathan leaned forward. Look, I don't know you. I don't know your life or your company or what responsibilities you're juggling, but I know this. That kid in the hospital needs his mom more than your shareholders need another profitable quarter. So you figure it out. You delegate. You say no to things that don't matter and yes to things that do. It's not that simple. It actually is. You're just scared of what it costs. Scarlett looked at him sharply. Excuse me? Being present means being vulnerable. Means you can't hide behind work anymore. Means you have to sit with your kids' pain and fear and not be able to fix it with money or strategy or corporate solutions. And that's terrifying, I get it. But that's also parenting. Scarlett was quiet for a long moment. Then, you're right. About what?
I'm scared. She looked down at her hands. Mason cried today because the treatment makes his hair fall out, and I didn't know what to say. I wanted to call a specialist, throw money at the problem, fix it immediately, but you can't fix that. You can just sit with him while he cries, and I didn't know how.
So what did you do? I left, told him I had an important meeting, let the nurses comfort him while I hid in my office pretending to work. Nathan wanted to judge her for that. Wanted to feel superior, to confirm his belief that rich people were fundamentally broken. But then he remembered the nights he'd hidden in the garage instead of going home to face Emma's questions about when Mommy was coming back. The times he'd buried himself in work because grief was easier to avoid than process. Yeah, he said quietly. I've done that too. Scarlett looked up, surprised. After my wife died, Nathan continued, Emma kept asking when she was coming home, and I couldn't handle it, so I took extra shifts. Worked myself unconscious. Let Mrs. Chen deal with bedtime because I couldn't face my daughter's questions. What changed? Emma stopped asking, and that was somehow worse. Nathan rubbed his face. I realized I was teaching her that pain was something to avoid, that when things got hard, you ran away. So I stopped running, started sitting with her at night even when she cried, started talking about Sarah even though it hurt, started being present even when presence felt impossible. How long did that take? I'm still learning. They sat in silence for a while, each lost in their own failures and fears. Finally, Scarlett stood. I should go. It's late, and you have... Tell me about the garage. She froze. What? The development, the timeline, the plans. Nathan stood too, facing her. Tell me why it had to happen now. Why you couldn't wait. Why destroying my business was worth accelerating your schedule. Scarlett's professional mask started to slide back into place, but Nathan saw her catch herself, saw her choose honesty instead. Because my board was pressuring me to show aggressive growth. Because our competitors are moving into the waterfront market. Because I wanted to prove I could execute faster and more efficiently than anyone expected. She paused. And because it never occurred to me that the human cost mattered. And now? Now I'm standing in your apartment at 2 a.m. realizing that every decision I've made in the last 5 years has been optimized for profit and strategic positioning while my son asks nurses to read him bedtime stories because his mother is too busy reshaping skylines. Her voice cracked on the last word. Nathan should have felt vindicated, should have enjoyed watching her squirm with guilt. Instead, he just felt tired. I can't help you, he said quietly. Whatever you're looking for here, absolution or perspective or permission to be human, I can't give it to you. I'm barely surviving my own mess. I know. But for what it's worth. Nathan met her eyes. The fact that you're here, asking these questions, admitting you're scared, that's already more human than most people in your position ever get. Scarlett's expression did something complicated. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just, Nathan sighed. Go be with your kid, really be with him, not on your phone reviewing emails while he watches TV, not squeezing in 30 minutes between meetings. Just sit with him, let everything else wait. And if it all falls apart, the company, the deals, the carefully constructed empire I've spent a decade building, then it falls apart, Nathan shrugged. And you build something new, something better, something that doesn't require you to stop being a person. Scarlett stood there in his living room, looking smaller than someone of her reputation should look. Younger, more breakable. I don't know if I can, she whispered. Then learn. Like I said, you figure it out. She nodded slowly, then walked to the door. Nathan followed. Nathan, she turned back. I'm sorry, for the lobby, for Emma, for all of it. I know. Does that change anything? Nathan thought about it, about his garage closing in 2 weeks, about the lawyer who might buy him a few more days but wouldn't solve the fundamental problem, about the life he was building for Emma on a foundation that kept crumbling. No, he said honestly, but it's still worth saying. Scarlett smiled, sad and genuine and nothing like the polished CEO smile from her publicity photos. Good night, Nathan. Good night. She left, and Nathan stood in his doorway, watching her walk down the hallway to the elevator. She didn't look back. He closed the door and leaned against it, trying to process the last 3 hours. Tomorrow, nothing would be different. He'd still be losing his garage, still be scrambling for solutions that didn't exist, still be one crisis away from complete collapse. But something had shifted. Some small recognition that maybe people weren't as simple as he'd wanted them to be. That the woman destroying his livelihood was also a terrified mother who'd forgotten how to be present for her son. It didn't fix anything, but it mattered anyway. Nathan checked on Emma, still sleeping soundly, elephant clutched to her chest, then collapsed into his own bed. Sleep came surprisingly easily, dreamless and deep. When he woke 6 hours later to Emma jumping on his bed demanding pancakes again, Nathan felt something he hadn't felt in weeks. Not hope, exactly, but maybe the faint possibility that the story wasn't over yet. The injunction came through on Monday at 4:47 p.m., 13 minutes before the deadline. Nathan was under a Honda Civic when his phone rang, and he almost didn't answer. But something, instinct maybe, or just the exhaustion-fueled certainty that ignoring problems didn't make them disappear, made him slide out and grab it. "Mr. Reed, Jennifer Park, we got it. Judge granted a temporary restraining order. Whitmore Development can't break ground until the original 60-day period expires." Nathan sat there on his creeper, wrench still in hand, trying to process. That's, what, 2 more weeks? 17 days, technically. It's not much, but it's something. And it establishes legal precedent if they try to accelerate again. You okay? Yeah, Nathan laughed, surprised by the sound of it. I didn't think it would actually work. Neither did I, honestly. But the judge was not pleased about the timeline manipulation. Corporate overreach is a hot-button issue right now. Jennifer paused. Your anonymous benefactor also authorized me to continue representing you through the full eviction period, pro bono, if you want. Nathan's grip tightened on the phone. Did they say why? No, just that they wanted to help. You interested? Every instinct screamed at Nathan to ask who it was, to demand answers, to understand the game being played. But he was too tired to interrogate good fortune. Yeah, he said. I'm interested. After he hung up, Nathan just sat there on the garage floor, staring at the oil-stained ceiling. 17 more days. Still not enough time to find a new location, secure funding, make the move, but enough time to maybe, what? Figure something out? Catch a break he'd stopped believing in? Boss? Tommy appeared in the bay doorway. You good? You've been under that Civic for like an hour. We got 17 more days. What? Someone filed an injunction. Delayed the construction start. Nathan stood up, joints protesting. We're not saved or anything, but we're not dead yet either. Tommy's face split into a grin that looked almost painful in its hope. Seriously? Seriously. Holy shit, how? I have no idea. But that was a lie. Nathan had a pretty good idea. He just didn't know what it meant or what to do with the information. That night, after Emma was asleep, Nathan sat at his kitchen table with a beer he wasn't drinking and Scarlett's business card, the one Marcus Chen had left weeks ago, in front of him. He'd fished it out of the trash that morning, smoothed out the wrinkles, tried to decide if calling would be pathetic or necessary. His phone rang before he could decide. Unknown number, Nathan answered. Hello? It's me. Scarlett's voice clearer than it had been at 2 a.m., but still carrying an edge of uncertainty. I hope it's okay that I'm calling. Depends on why you're calling. I wanted to tell you that I had nothing to do with the injunction. I hired the lawyer, but the legal strategy, that was all Jennifer. I didn't interfere. Okay. And I wanted to ask... She stopped, started again. I'm at the hospital with Mason. He's having a rough day. The treatment makes him nauseous, and he can't keep anything down, and he keeps asking for things I don't know how to give him. Nathan waited. You said to just sit with him, Scarlett continued, but I don't know how to do that without trying to fix things, without reaching for solutions that don't exist. And I thought maybe, I don't know what I thought. This was stupid. I'm sorry for bothering you. What does he want? What? Mason. What's he asking for? Scarlett was quiet for a moment. Stories. He wants me to tell him stories about when I was little. But all my childhood memories are about being poor and scared, and I don't want to burden him with that. Then make them up. What? Make up stories about a kid who went on adventures, who fought dragons or explored space or whatever 5-year-olds think is cool. Nathan leaned back in his chair. Emma loves it when I tell her about the time I supposedly raced a bear. Never happened, obviously, but she doesn't care. She just wants to listen to my voice and feel like I'm there with her. You raced a bear? In the story, yeah, lost, obviously. Bear had 4 legs and I only had 2. Unfair advantage.
Scarlett laughed, soft and genuine. Did Emma buy it? She's 6, not stupid, but she likes the story anyway. Nathan paused. Point is, Mason doesn't need your real memories. He just needs you, present, focused on him, making him feel like he matters more than whatever else is happening in your life. What if I'm terrible at it? Then you'll be terrible at it, and he'll still love you for trying. He could hear Scarlett breathing on the other end, processing. Thank you, she said finally. Don't thank me. Just go tell your kid a story. Nathan? Yeah? The lawyer. I know you probably figured out it was me, and I know it doesn't fix what I did to your business, but I needed to do something to prove to myself that I could still make choices that weren't about profit margins. I know. Does it help? The extra time? Nathan looked around his apartment, at the stack of rejection letters, the calendar with circles around impossible deadlines, the drawings Emma had made of their garage with "Don't Close" written in crayon across the top. I don't know yet, he said honestly, but it's better than nothing. After they hung up, Nathan sat there for a long time, trying to figure out what he was feeling. Not gratitude exactly. Not forgiveness. Something more complicated that didn't have a clean name. His phone buzzed with the text from Tommy. Found a possible space. Old warehouse in Riverside. Needs work, but rent is cheap. Want to check it out tomorrow? Nathan stared at the message. Riverside was 45 minutes away. The neighborhood was rough. But cheap rent meant maybe, just maybe, he could make the numbers work. Yeah. Send me the address. The next morning, Nathan dropped Emma at school and drove to Riverside with Tommy. The warehouse was worse than he'd imagined. Crumbling brick, broken windows, a roof that clearly leaked in 17 places. But the bones were solid, and the space was twice the size of his current garage. The landlord was a 60-something Vietnamese woman named Mrs. Nguyen, who looked at Nathan's work boots and calloused hands with something like approval. You fix cars? She asked. Yes, ma'am. Good. Neighborhood needs mechanic. Last one retired, moved to Florida. Everyone drives to the city now for service. She walked through the space, pointing at problems Nathan had already cataloged. Roof needs repair. Electrical needs upgrade. But structure is sound. My late husband built this building in 1987. Good construction. What's the rent? $3,200 a month. First month, last month, 1 month security deposit. Nathan did the math. $9,600 up front, plus repair costs, plus permits and business licenses and insurance. He had $3,400 in savings. He was still $6,200 short. Can I think about it? He asked. Mrs. Nguyen studied him with eyes that had clearly seen a lot of bullshit in her life. You're the one from the video, the CEO woman who kicked you out. Yeah. She was wrong to do that. Yeah. But you still need money. Yeah. Mrs. Nguyen pulled out her phone, scrolled for a moment, then showed Nathan the screen. It was a GoFundMe page. Not the one Nathan had shut down, but a new one, created by someone named Sarah's friends. Your wife, Mrs. Nguyen said. She used to volunteer at the community center, taught ESL classes. My daughter was one of her students. Nathan's throat tightened. I didn't know that. Sarah was kind, patient. She helped my daughter learn English, get her GED, apply to community college. She changed my daughter's life. Mrs. Nguyen gestured at the phone. When I saw your video, I remembered, so I asked around, found other people Sarah helped. We started fundraiser. The page had raised $41,000. Nathan couldn't breathe. I shut down the last one, he managed. This one isn't charity. It's community taking care of its own. Mrs. Nguyen put her phone away. Sarah took care of us. Now we take care of her family. That's how it works. I can't. You can. And you will. Because your daughter needs stability and your customers need a mechanic, and refusing help because of pride is stupid. She softened slightly. Your wife would want you to accept it.
Nathan looked at Tommy, who was suddenly very interested in examining the electrical panel, then back at Mrs. Nguyen. I don't know what to say. Say yes, sign the lease, fix the roof, open your business. She pulled out a contract from her enormous purse. Also, I reduced deposit to half month instead of full month. Because Sarah was a good person and you seem like you're trying. Nathan's hands were shaking as he took the contract. The numbers blurred together. Rent terms, liability clauses, maintenance responsibilities. But one thing was clear. This was real. Possible. An actual solution instead of another dead end. When do you need an answer? Today. I have 2 other people interested, but I want to give you first option because of Sarah. Nathan pulled out his phone and called Jennifer Park. I need you to review a commercial lease contract, like right now. Can you do that? Send it over. Nathan took photos of every page and texted them. Then he waited, pacing the empty warehouse while Mrs. Nguyen watched with patient amusement and Tommy pretended to measure windows. 15 minutes later, Jennifer called back. It's clean. Standard terms, nothing predatory. Rent is very reasonable for the area. I'd recommend negotiating for a clause about repair cost splitting, but otherwise it's solid. Really? Really? You want me to request modifications? Nathan looked at Mrs. Nguyen, who was already pulling out a pen. No, he said. I want to sign it. An hour later, Nathan walked out of that warehouse with a signed lease in his hand and a future that looked almost possible. The relief was so intense it felt like drowning in reverse, being pulled up into air after weeks underwater. Tommy was grinning like an idiot. We did it, boss. We actually did it. We haven't done anything yet, still need to move everything, fix the roof, pass inspections. But we have a place. That's huge. It was huge. Nathan knew it was huge, but the weight of what came next was already pressing down. The fundraiser money felt like borrowed time, like he was spending other people's grief and goodwill on his own survival. You good? Tommy asked. Yeah, just processing. They drove back to the garage, and Nathan spent the rest of the day making lists. Equipment to move, repairs to schedule, customers to notify, permits to transfer. The logistics were overwhelming, but they were concrete, solvable, better than the endless loop of rejection and defeat. Emma was thrilled when he told her that night. We get to stay? She asked, eyes wide. Not at the old garage, but we found a new one in a neighborhood called Riverside. Is it far? A bit, but it's bigger. And the lady who owns the building knew Mommy. Emma processed this with her characteristic seriousness. Mommy would be happy we're staying. Yeah, baby, I think she would. That night, after Emma was asleep, Nathan pulled up the GoFundMe page on his laptop. He read through the comments, dozens of people sharing stories about Sarah, how she'd helped them study for citizenship tests, how she'd babysat their kids for free when they had job interviews, how she'd organized community dinners and clothing drives and tutoring sessions. Nathan had known Sarah was involved in the community. He just hadn't realized the scope of it, the number of lives she'd quietly touched without ever asking for recognition. One comment stopped him cold. Sarah taught me English when I first came to this country. She never made me feel stupid for not knowing words. She said everyone starts somewhere. When I got my first job, she brought flowers to celebrate. I will never forget her kindness. This donation is small compared to what she gave me. Lin Nguyen, Mrs. Nguyen's daughter. Nathan sat there at his kitchen table, crying for the first time since Sarah's funeral. Not from grief this time, but from the overwhelming recognition that his wife had built something that outlasted her death. That people he'd never met were taking care of Emma because Sarah had taken care of them. His phone buzzed. Another text from an unknown number. I heard about the lease. Congratulations. Nathan stared at the message, then typed back. How did you hear? I still have connections in real estate. Word travels. Scarlett? Yes. I hope it's okay that I'm texting. I can stop if you want. Nathan should have said yes, stop. Should have maintained boundaries between his life and hers. But something about the last 48 hours had shifted his understanding of what was possible. It's fine. How's Mason? Better today. I told him the story about the bear. He asked if I was the bear. I think he knows I'm making it up, but he likes it anyway. Told you. You were right about a lot of things. Nathan didn't know how to respond to that, so he didn't. A minute later, another text came through. Can I ask you something? And you can absolutely say no, but would you be willing to meet for coffee? Not as CEO and mechanic, just as two people trying to figure out how to be better parents. Nathan read the message 3 times. Why? Because talking to you the other night helped. Because you understand things my therapist doesn't. Because I don't have anyone else in my life who tells me the truth without worrying about corporate politics or their job security. You have a therapist? 3, actually. None of them are very good. Nathan laughed despite himself. When? Whenever works for you. I can come to you. I know your schedule is insane. Nathan thought about it. About what Emma had said in the car after the lobby incident. She looked sad. About Scarlett standing in his apartment at 2 a.m., completely hollowed out. About the fact that hiring a lawyer and checking in on Mason's stories didn't erase what she'd done to his business, but maybe suggested she was trying to become someone different. Thursday, 7 a.m. There's a diner called Rosie's on 5th. Coffee's terrible, but it's cheap. I'll be there. Nathan set down his phone and stared at the ceiling, wondering what the hell he was doing. Wondering if this was forgiveness or just exhaustion. Wondering if it mattered. Thursday morning came too fast. Nathan dropped Emma at school and headed to Rosie's, half expecting Scarlett not to show. But she was already there when he arrived, sitting in a corner booth with 2 cups of coffee in front of her, looking more nervous than any billionaire should ever look in a diner. She dressed down, jeans and a sweater, minimal makeup, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Nathan almost didn't recognize her without the armor of designer suits and executive presence. "Hey," she said as he slid into the booth. "Hey, I got you coffee. Black, right? I remember from the other night." "Thanks." They sat in awkward silence for a moment. Around them, the diner hummed with morning activity. Construction workers grabbing breakfast before their shifts, nurses coming off night rotation, students hunched over laptops, normal people living normal lives. "I don't know how to do this," Scarlett admitted. "Do what?" "Have a conversation that isn't about business or strategy or corporate objectives. I've been a CEO for so long I've forgotten how to just talk to people." "Then start with something easy." "How's Mason?" Scarlett's face softened immediately. "He had a good night. Kept his food down. Asked me to teach him to play chess because apparently one of the other kids in pediatrics knows how, and Mason's competitive even when he's sick." "You know how to play chess?" "Not well, but I'm learning." She smiled slightly. "I downloaded an app. We've been practicing every night. I lose every time." "Does he gloat?" "Mercilessly. Turns out my 5-year-old is ruthless about board games." "Sounds like his mom." The words landed before Nathan could stop them. He expected Scarlett to bristle, to retreat behind her corporate mask. Instead, she laughed. "Yeah, I guess he gets it honestly." She sipped her coffee, made a face. "You weren't kidding about the quality here." "Told you, but it's cheap and they don't kick you out if you sit for hours." "Is that what we're doing? Sitting for hours?" "I don't know. You called this meeting." Scarlett set down her cup and looked at him directly. "I wanted to apologize. Really apologize. Not the corporate speak version where I acknowledge regrettable circumstances and commit to doing better going forward. An actual apology." "Okay, what I did to you, to your business, to Emma, it was cruel. And it was unnecessary. I could have delayed the project, could have helped you relocate, could have shown basic human decency. But I didn't, because I'd trained myself to see people as obstacles or assets, never as actual humans with lives and families and struggles." She paused. "And I'm sorry, truly." Nathan sat with that for a moment. The apology felt genuine in a way the lawyer and the injunction hadn't. More vulnerable, more costly. "Thank you," he said finally. "Does it change anything?" "You asked me that before. And you said no. I'm hoping the answer is different now." Nathan thought about Sarah's community showing up for him, about Mrs. Nguyen offering him a chance because his wife had been kind, about the way pain and help could come from the same unexpected sources. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I'm not ready to forgive you, but I'm also not interested in carrying around anger that doesn't serve anyone. So maybe we're just 2 people who hurt each other, trying to figure out how to be better." Scarlett nodded slowly. "I can work with that." They talked for 2 hours, about parenting and failure and the impossible balance between survival and presence, About Mason's fear of needles and Emma's obsession with dolphins. About Scarlett's realization that her company could run without her micromanaging every decision, and Nathan's terror that he was still screwing up Emma despite his best efforts. I snapped at her yesterday, Nathan admitted. She spilled juice on some paperwork, and I yelled, really yelled, and the look on her face... He stopped. I apologized immediately, but the damage was done. She knew I was stressed about the move and she was trying to help, and I made her feel like she'd done something wrong. What did you do after? Apologized again. Explained that I was overwhelmed, but that wasn't her fault. Told her she was the best thing in my life and I was sorry for making her doubt that. Nathan rubbed his face. Then I let her stay up past bedtime watching her favorite movie and eating ice cream for dinner because I felt guilty. Did it help? The ice cream or the apology? Either. I don't know. She said she forgave me, but kids always say that. Doesn't mean it's true. Scarlett was quiet for a moment. Mason told me he was scared I'd stop visiting once he felt better, that I only came to the hospital because he was sick. What did you say? That I was scared too, that I'd been a terrible mother but I was trying to learn how to be better, that he deserved more than I'd given him, and I was sorry. She looked down at her hands. Then I promised I'd be there, not just when he was sick, always. Can you keep that promise? I don't know, but I'm going to try. Nathan's phone buzzed. A text from the roofing contractor with an estimate that made his stomach drop. $22,000 for a complete roof replacement. He'd been hoping for 10. Scarlett must have seen his expression change. Bad news? Roof repair estimate. It's more than I budgeted. How much more? Nathan almost didn't answer, but something about the last 2 hours had created a strange intimacy between them, a shared understanding that they were both drowning in different ways. 12,000 more. Scarlett pulled out her phone. What's the contractor's name? Don't. Don't what? Don't fix this with money. That's not why I told you. I'm not trying to fix it. I'm trying to help. It's the same thing. No, it's not. Scarlett set down her phone. Fixing it would be writing a check and moving on. Helping is offering resources and letting you decide if you want them. Nathan wanted to argue, wanted to maintain his independence, his pride, his right to struggle without interference. But he was so tired of struggling, and the fundraiser had already taught him that accepting help wasn't weakness, it was community. What are you offering? My company has contracts with every major contractor in the city. We negotiate bulk rates that individuals can't access. I can make a call, get you the same pricing we pay. Probably cut that estimate in half. She paused. Not as a favor. As basic business efficiency. You need a roof. I have connections. That's it. Why would you do that? Because I'm trying to be better, and because helping you doesn't cost me anything but a phone call. Scarlett met his eyes. And maybe because some part of me is still trying to prove I'm not the person I was in that lobby. Nathan thought about it. About the difference between charity and community. About whether accepting help from Scarlett was different from accepting it from Sarah's friends. Okay, he said finally. Make the call. Scarlett smiled. Not the polished CEO smile, but something genuine and almost shy. She picked up her phone and stepped outside, and through the diner window Nathan could see her pacing while she talked, animated and focused. She came back 5 minutes later. Done. Contractor will call you by end of day with a revised estimate. Should be around 11,000, maybe less. Thank you. You're welcome. They sat there for another moment, and Nathan realized that something fundamental had shifted. Not forgiveness, he wasn't there yet, but maybe the beginning of understanding, the recognition that people were complicated and capable of change, and sometimes the worst parts of them could coexist with genuine attempts at redemption. I should go, Scarlett said. I promised Mason I'd be at the hospital by 9. Yeah, I've got a transmission to rebuild. They stood, awkward again now that the conversation was ending. Can we do this again? Scarlett asked. The coffee thing. Not to talk about business or apologies, just to talk. Why? Because I don't have friends. I have employees and board members and people who want things from me, but I don't have anyone I can just talk to. She paused. And you're the only person who's ever called me out on my bullshit and then invited me to sit down anyway. Nathan thought about his own isolation. about how most of his friendships had faded after Sarah died, ground down by the daily struggle of single parenthood and financial stress, about how lonely it was to carry everything alone. "Yeah," he said, "we can do this again." Scarlett's smile was bright enough to hurt. "Thursday?" she asked. "Thursday." Nathan watched her leave, then sat back down in the booth and finished his terrible coffee. Around him, the diner continued its morning rhythm. Orders called out, plates clattering, conversations overlapping. The world kept turning, indifferent to his confusion and tentative hope. His phone rang. The contractor, already calling with the revised estimate. 11,200, exactly half the original quote. Nathan closed his eyes and let himself feel it. The relief, the possibility, the terrifying recognition that maybe things were actually going to work out. Not perfectly. Nothing ever worked perfectly. But maybe well enough. The next 3 weeks moved with the strange momentum of controlled chaos. Nathan spent his days coordinating the move, boxing tools, labeling equipment, scheduling the transfer of utilities and permits. The warehouse transformation happened in stages, each one revealing new problems that ate into his budget. Electrical panel needed replacing. Floor drains were clogged. The bay doors didn't close properly. But somehow, every problem found a solution. Tommy knew a guy who did electrical work cheap. Mrs. Nguyen's nephew handled the plumbing at cost. The bay door company gave Nathan a discount after he fixed their service truck for free. It felt like the universe was finally cooperating instead of actively working against him. Emma helped pack on weekends, wrapping smaller tools in newspaper and labeling boxes with her careful 6-year-old handwriting. She'd made a game of it, giving each box a name. Mr. Wrench Family and the Socket Sisters, and Screwy the Screwdriver Gang. "You're weird, kid," Nathan told her affectionately. "You're weirder, Dad." The Thursday coffee meetings with Scarlett became routine. 7 a.m. at Rosie's, terrible coffee, 2 hours of conversation that ranged from parenting struggles to business philosophy to the weird comfort of talking to someone who understood what it meant to carry impossible weight. They didn't talk about the lobby incident anymore. Didn't rehash the eviction or the apology. That history sat between them like old furniture, present but no longer the focal point. Instead, they talked about Mason's progress, about how the treatment was working, how he was regaining strength, how Scarlett had started leaving work at 5 p.m. to have dinner with him at the hospital, about the chess games he kept winning, and the stories she kept making up, and the way he'd started trusting that she'd actually show up when she promised. And Nathan talked about Emma's anxiety around the move, about how she'd started having nightmares about losing their apartment too, about being homeless, about all the catastrophic possibilities that 6-year-olds shouldn't have to imagine. "What do you tell her?" Scarlett asked during their 4th Thursday meeting. "The truth. That I'm scared too, but we're going to be okay. That scared doesn't mean doomed." Nathan stirred sugar into his coffee even though he drank it black. "I don't know if she believes me." "Does it matter that she believes you?" "Yeah, kids can smell bullshit. If I'm lying to make her feel better, she knows. And then she can't trust anything I say." Scarlett was quiet for a moment. "Mason asked me if I was going to die." Nathan looked up sharply. "Last week," she continued, out of nowhere. "We were playing chess and he just asked, 'Mom, are you going to die like the kids in the stories?'" Her hands tightened around her mug. Apparently one of the other kids in pediatrics didn't make it. Cancer. Mason heard the nurses talking. "What did you say?" "I wanted to lie. To tell him nobody dies, everyone gets better, he doesn't need to worry." Scarlett's voice cracked slightly. "But I remembered what you said about kids smelling bullshit, so I told him the truth. That everyone dies eventually, but I'm healthy and plan to be around for a very long time. That his treatment is working and he's going to be okay. That some kids get sicker than others, but that doesn't mean he's in danger." "How'd he take it?" "Better than I expected. He thought about it, then asked if we could make a list of things we'd do together when he got better, like a promise that I'm not going anywhere." She pulled out her phone and showed Nathan a note app titled Mason and Mom Adventures. The list included learn to ride a bike, visit the dinosaur museum, build a blanket fort that takes up the whole living room, have a chess tournament, adopt a dog. "A dog?" Nathan smiled. "He's been lobbying for one for 2 years. I always said no because of work travel and board meetings, and a dozen other excuses that boiled down to, I don't have time. Scarlett looked at the list. But I'm making time now, so we're getting a dog. What kind? He wants a golden retriever, something big and friendly that can be his adventure companion, his words, not mine. Nathan thought about Emma's requests for a pet. He'd said no for the same reasons Scarlett had: time, money, responsibility. But maybe those were just excuses. Maybe he was using struggle as a reason to deny small joys that could make hard days bearable. Emma wants a cat, he said. Are you going to get her one? I don't know. Probably not. Apartments don't allow pets, and even if they did, vet bills are expensive. So you're teaching her that poverty means no pets, no small happinesses, just survival. The observation stung because it was true. I'm teaching her reality, Nathan said defensively. Or you're teaching her that wanting things is pointless, that hoping for joy is naive. Scarlett leaned forward. I'm not judging. I did the same thing with Mason. Taught him that work came first, that sacrifices were necessary, that pleasure was something you earned after achieving enough success. And you know what? He learned the lesson. He stopped asking for things, stopped expecting me to show up, just accepted that his mother was too important for him. That's different, is it? You're broke because of circumstances. I'm isolated because of choices. But we're both teaching our kids that they don't deserve our full presence. Nathan wanted to argue, wanted to explain that he gave Emma everything he had, that working 16-hour days was about survival, not choice, that comparing their situations was insulting. But sitting across from Scarlett, who'd restructured her entire life in the past month, who was learning to prioritize her son over her empire, who was trying despite having every excuse not to, Nathan couldn't maintain the anger. Maybe you're right, he admitted quietly. So get Emma a cat. I just said apartments don't allow. Then find an apartment that does, or negotiate with your current landlord, or foster a cat temporarily. There are solutions if you actually want them. Scarlett softened. Look, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying that sometimes we use hard as an excuse to avoid risk. And teaching our kids that trying for happiness is worth the effort might be the most important lesson we give them. Nathan sat with that, thinking about Emma's face when she saw cats at the pet store, the way she'd linger at the adoption center windows, the stories she'd make up about what she'd name a cat if she ever got one. Her birthday is in 3 weeks, he said. Perfect timing. I didn't say I was doing it. But you're thinking about it. Nathan was thinking about it, and hating that Scarlett was right. His phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer Park. Final eviction date is confirmed for Friday. You need to be completely out of the old location by 5 p.m. All permits and licenses transferred to Riverside. You're good to go. Nathan showed Scarlett the message. How do you feel? She asked. Terrified, relieved, exhausted. He pocketed his phone. Like I'm closing one chapter without knowing if the next one is going to work out. That's called moving forward. Is it always this uncomfortable? In my experience? Yes. Scarlett checked her own phone. I should get to the hospital. Mason has physical therapy at 9. How's that going? Slowly. The treatment weakened his muscles. He gets frustrated because he used to be able to run and climb, and now he gets tired walking to the bathroom. She stood, gathering her coat. But he's improving. The doctors say he'll make a full recovery. Just takes time. They walked out together into the morning cold. Scarlett's car. She'd started driving herself instead of using a driver, some small reclamation of normalcy, was parked next to Nathan's truck. Nathan, she turned to face him. Thank you. For these mornings, for not making this weird. It is weird. Okay, yes, but for not making it weirder. Nathan laughed. You're welcome. And for the record, you're a good father. Emma's lucky to have you. The words landed unexpectedly. Nathan had spent months cataloging his failures, measuring himself against an impossible standard of perfect parenting. Having someone, especially someone as brutally honest as Scarlett had become, acknowledge that he was doing okay felt like oxygen. You're getting better, he said. At the mom thing. Mason's lucky too. Scarlett's smile was soft. We're all just doing our best, right? Right. They drove away in opposite directions. Scarlett toward the hospital, Nathan toward the garage. The morning sun painted everything gold, and for the first time in months, Nathan let himself feel something close to optimism. The move happened over one brutal weekend. Tommy and three other guys from the old garage showed up Saturday at dawn with trucks and equipment. Mrs. Nguyen brought her nephew and his friends. Even Mrs. Chen appeared with sandwiches and thermoses of coffee, directing traffic like a general commanding troops. Emma helped where she could, mostly staying out of the way, and entertaining herself with her beloved elephant and a coloring book. By Sunday evening, Harbor Mechanics existed in a new location. The sign, salvaged from the old building, hung above the bay doors at the Riverside warehouse. The tools were organized. The electrical was functional. The roof no longer leaked. It wasn't perfect. The paint was chipped. The concrete floor had cracks. The bathroom sink dripped. But it was theirs. Paid for, permitted, ready to open Monday morning. Nathan stood in the middle of the empty garage bay after everyone had left, looking at what they'd built. Emma appeared at his side, slipping her hand into his. "It's bigger than the old one," she observed. "Yeah. Do you like it?" Nathan looked down at his daughter. "I like that we're still here, that we didn't give up." "Me too." Emma leaned against his leg. "Daddy?" "Yeah, baby? Can we get a cat now?" Nathan laughed, the sound echoing in the empty space. "How did you know I was thinking about that?" "Because you always rub your face when you're thinking about saying yes to something." Apparently he was more transparent than he'd realized. "Maybe," he said. "Let's get through this week first. See how the new garage does. Then we'll talk about cats." Emma beamed. "That's almost yes." "That's maybe." "Almost yes," she insisted, and skipped toward the door. Monday morning, Harbor Mechanics reopened for business. The first customer arrived at 7:15 a.m., one of Nathan's regulars, an elderly man named Frank, who drove a 1998 Toyota Camry and got his oil changed religiously every 3,000 miles. "Heard you moved," Frank said. "Drove 40 minutes to get here." "You didn't have to do that. There are mechanics closer to you." "Yeah, but they're not you." Frank handed over his keys. "You've been taking care of this car for 6 years. I'm not switching now just because you moved locations." 3 more regulars showed up before noon, then 5 more in the afternoon. By closing time, Nathan had a full schedule for the next week, and a waiting list that actually required a waiting list. Word had spread through the neighborhood network. Sarah's old students, their families, people who donated to the fundraiser, they all showed up, loyal in a way that made Nathan's chest tight. Tuesday brought new customers. People from Riverside who'd heard a mechanic had opened nearby. Wednesday was even busier. By Thursday, Nathan had to turn people away and schedule them for the following week. Tommy pulled him aside during lunch. "Boss, we're going to need to hire another mechanic. We're at capacity." "We've been open 4 days." "Yeah, and we're already booked solid. That's a good problem to have." It was a good problem, the kind of problem Nathan had stopped believing in. Thursday morning, Nathan arrived at Rosie's to find Scarlett already there with a surprise guest. A small boy sat beside her in the booth, skinny and pale, but with enormous brown eyes that tracked Nathan's approach with curious intensity. He wore a baseball cap, probably covering hair loss from treatment, and a superhero t-shirt. "Nathan, this is Mason," Scarlett said. "Mason, this is my friend Nathan." "Friend." The word sat strangely but not wrong. "Hi," Mason said shyly. "Hey, buddy. Nice to meet you." Nathan slid into the opposite side of the booth. Mason studied him with the unnerving directness of children who'd learned to read adults for signs of danger or dishonesty. "Mom says you have a daughter," Mason said. "I do. Her name's Emma. She's 6. "I'm 5. Almost 6. My birthday is in 43 days. "That's exciting. You planning a party?" Mason glanced at Scarlett. "Maybe, if I'm feeling better." "You'll be feeling better," Scarlett said firmly. "Dr. Martinez said you're ahead of schedule." She also said no running for another month. Mason slumped dramatically. "Which is basically forever," Nathan smiled. "I broke my arm when I was 7. Doctor said no bike riding for 6 weeks. I thought I'd die of boredom." "Did you?" "Nope. Turned out I could do lots of other stuff. Reading, drawing, building Lego. Sometimes limitations just mean you find new things to try." Mason considered this seriously. "Mom's teaching me chess. I heard. She said you beat her every time." "She's not very good."
Mason's grin was pure mischief. But she's getting better.
They ordered breakfast, pancakes for Mason, coffee and toast for the adults. Scarlett looked different with Mason beside her. Softer, more present. She kept checking on him. Was he warm enough? Did he need his medication? Was the food okay? With the kind of attentive anxiety Nathan recognized from his own parenting. "Mom talks about you a lot," Mason said suddenly. "Mason," Scarlett looked embarrassed. "She does. She says you're teaching her how to be a better mom." Nathan caught Scarlett's eye. "I don't think that's exactly what I'm doing." "You kind of are," Scarlett admitted. "Mason's right. These conversations, they've helped me figure out what matters, what to prioritize." "Like chess," Mason added, "and stories, and getting a dog." "We're getting a dog?" Nathan asked. "After I'm better. A golden retriever. I'm naming him Captain." Mason attacked his pancakes with the enthusiasm of someone who'd recently regained his appetite. "What kind of cat is Emma getting?" Nathan looked at Scarlett. "You told him about that?" "I might have mentioned it. We haven't decided if we're getting a cat." "But you're thinking about it," Mason said. "That's what Mom always says before she says yes." Apparently that particular tell ran in families. They spent an hour at the diner. Mason dominated the conversation, talking about his dinosaur collection, his plans for first grade, his theories about whether velociraptors could actually open doors like in the movies. He was bright and funny, and had clearly inherited Scarlett's sharp mind. But Nathan also saw the fragility, the way Mason tired easily, the tremor in his hands from medication, the moments where pain flickered across his face before he hid it behind a smile. This kid had been through hell, and Scarlett had watched it happen while simultaneously running a billion-dollar company and maintaining her reputation as an emotionless corporate machine. No wonder she'd shown up at his apartment broken. When they finally left the diner, Mason hugged Nathan goodbye without hesitation. "I like you," he announced. "You should come meet Emma. We could have a play date." "Mason, I'm sure Nathan's busy." "Actually," Nathan heard himself say, "Emma would probably love that. She doesn't have many friends in the new neighborhood yet." Mason's face lit up. "Really? Really? Let me talk to her, see what works." After they left, Nathan sat in his truck for a long moment, processing what he'd just agreed to. Playdates meant further entanglement, meant letting Scarlett and Mason into Emma's life, into their small, protected world. But Emma did need friends. And Mason seemed like a good kid. And maybe Nathan was tired of letting old anger dictate new possibilities. He drove to the garage and threw himself into work. Transmission rebuild, brake job, 3 oil changes. The rhythm of it was meditative, predictable. Under his hands, problems had solutions. Parts fit together in logical ways. Unlike life, which seemed determined to stay complicated. That evening, he picked up Emma from after-school care and took her to the shelter. "Why are we here?" Emma asked as they walked through the doors. "Just looking." The shelter was loud with barking and meowing and the smell of too many animals in too little space. Emma's eyes went wide as they entered the cat room. "Daddy? You've been asking for a cat for 2 years. I think it's time we got you one." Emma's shriek could probably be heard in the next county. She threw her arms around Nathan's waist, squeezing with 6-year-old ferocity. "Really? Really, really? Really, really? But you have to help take care of it. Feed it, clean the litter box, all of it." "I will, I promise. I'll be the best cat mom ever." They spent an hour meeting cats. Emma gravitated toward the oldest, scruffiest one, a gray tabby named Gerald who was missing half an ear and had a crooked tail. "This one," Emma declared. "You sure? There are lots of kittens. Gerald's been here the longest. The lady said nobody wants him because he's old and not pretty, but I think he's perfect." The shelter volunteer looked like she might cry. "Gerald's been with us for 8 months. He's 10 years old, very gentle, great with kids. Most people want kittens." "We want Gerald," Emma said firmly. Nathan filled out the adoption paperwork while Emma sat in front of Gerald's cage, talking to him about all the adventures they'd have together. The cat, clearly sensing he'd just won the lottery, purred loud enough to rattle the cage. On the drive home with Gerald in a carrier, Emma couldn't stop smiling. "Thank you, Daddy. This is the best day ever." "You're welcome, baby." "Can I name him something else? Gerald is kind of boring." "He came with that name."
Might be confusing to change it now. Emma considered this. What if we call him Gerald the Great? Like he's royalty? Gerald the Great it is. That night, Nathan lay in bed listening to Emma read to Gerald the Great in her room. The cat had immediately claimed her bed as his throne, and Emma had immediately accepted this as natural order. His phone buzzed. A text from Scarlett. Mason hasn't stopped talking about meeting you. Thank you for being kind to him. He's a good kid. You are doing something right. We're both trying. I think that counts for something. Yeah, I think it does. Nathan set down his phone and closed his eyes. Outside his window, the city hummed with its usual chaos. Somewhere in that noise, Scarlett was probably tucking Mason into his hospital bed. Mrs. Nguyen was closing up her building. Tommy was probably having a beer with his girlfriend. Mrs. Chen was watching her Korean dramas. Life was happening. Messy and complicated and nothing like Nathan had planned. But for the first time in a long time, that felt okay. Friday afternoon, Nathan was finishing up a brake job when a black sedan pulled into the garage. He didn't recognize the car, but something about it, the expensive shine, the tinted windows, made his shoulders tense. The driver's door opened and Marcus Chen stepped out. Nathan grabbed a wrench, not threatening, just holding it. "We're closed," he said. Marcus raised his hands peacefully. "I'm not here to cause trouble. Just wanted to see the new place." "You've seen it. Now leave." "Nathan, can I call you Nathan? I owe you an apology." Marcus walked closer, stopping a respectful distance away. "The way we handled the eviction was aggressive, unnecessary. Scarlett has made that very clear." "Scarlett sent you?" "No, I came on my own. Because I've been with Whitmore Development for 8 years and I've never seen her prioritize people over profit until recently. And I'm trying to understand what changed." Nathan set down the wrench. "What changed is she remembered she's human. That the numbers on her spreadsheets are actual lives. That destroying someone's business has consequences beyond quarterly earnings." Marcus nodded slowly. "She's been different in meetings, more willing to question strategy, to consider social impact. The board is concerned. The board can deal." "I agree." Marcus smiled slightly. "Look, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just saying that what happened between you two, whatever happened, it changed her. And I think it's changing the company too, for the better." "Good for the company." "Good for everyone, actually. We just approved funding for a small business relocation assistance program. Anyone displaced by future developments gets support finding new locations, negotiating leases, transferring permits. It won't undo what happened to you, but it might prevent it from happening to others." Nathan processed this. "She did that?" "She proposed it. The board fought her. She won." Marcus pulled out a business card. "If you ever need anything, permits, connections, whatever, call me. Consider it my way of making amends." He left before Nathan could respond. That evening, Nathan texted Scarlett. "Marcus stopped by. Said you started a relocation program. Did he tell you the board called me a bleeding heart socialist?" "No, but that's hilarious. I've been called worse. At least this time it was for something that actually helps people. Thank you for doing that. I'm not doing it for gratitude. I'm doing it because it's right. There's a difference." Nathan smiled at his phone. "Yeah, there is." Saturday morning, Emma woke him at dawn. "Daddy, Gerald threw up on my rug. That's what cats do sometimes, baby. But it's gross." Nathan dragged himself out of bed and helped Emma clean up while Gerald watched with regal indifference. Later, while Emma fed Gerald breakfast and narrated his every movement like a nature documentary, Nathan made coffee and checked his phone. A text from Scarlett with a photo attached. Mason asleep in a hospital bed, surrounded by stuffed dinosaurs, a chessboard on his bedside table. "Going home today." "Finally. That's amazing. Congratulations." "Thank you. For everything. I mean it." Nathan stared at that message for a long time, thinking about the journey from that lobby encounter to this moment, about how anger and understanding could somehow coexist, about how people could be both the worst and best versions of themselves depending on what they chose to prioritize. Emma appeared at his elbow. "Who are you texting?" "A friend." "Do I know them?" "Actually, yeah, her son's name is Mason. They might come visit sometime. You could meet him." Emma's eyes lit up. "Really? How old is he?" Almost 6. He likes dinosaurs. I like dolphins, but I also like dinosaurs. We could be friends. Maybe. We'll see. Emma went back to narrating Gerald's breakfast, and Nathan finished his coffee. Through the window, he could see the sunrise painting the warehouse district in shades of amber and gold. The neighborhood was rougher than his old one, but there was life here. Potential. His phone rang. Tommy.
Boss, I know it's Saturday, but we got a problem. That transmission we rebuilt, customer just called. It's making a weird noise. Can you come take a look? Nathan sighed. Yeah, give me 20 minutes. He dropped Emma at Mrs. Chen's, who'd somehow found an apartment in Riverside 2 blocks away, claiming it was coincidence, though Nathan suspected otherwise, and headed to the garage. The transmission did make a weird noise. Nathan spent 3 hours tracking down the problem, a loose mounting bolt, simple fix, and didn't charge the customer extra because mistakes happened, and integrity mattered more than profit. By the time he finished, it was noon. He was hungry and tired and covered in transmission fluid. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Nathan almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Hello? Mr. Reed, this is Daniel Foster from Channel 7. We're doing a follow-up story on the viral lobby video. I was hoping to interview you about your new location, how the community came together, the resolution with Whitmore Development. No thanks. It would be a positive piece, human interest angle. People love redemption stories. This isn't a redemption story, it's just life. And I'm not interested in being your content. Nathan hung up. 2 minutes later, Scarlett called. Did a reporter just contact you? Yeah, how did you? They called me first. Wanted my comment on reconciliation with the mechanic I evicted. Like we're some heartwarming feature instead of 2 people who actually had to do the work of not hating each other. Nathan laughed. What did you tell them? That my personal life isn't public entertainment and they could shove their camera where the sun doesn't shine. You didn't. I use more professional language, but yes, essentially that. Scarlett paused. Are you okay? With them calling? Yeah, just annoying. I'm not interested in being the poster child for corporate redemption or whatever narrative they're selling. Good, because that's not what this is. What is it? Scarlett was quiet for a moment. 2 people who were drowning in different ways, learning to swim by helping each other stay afloat. That's not a story. That's just being human. Yeah, Nathan said softly. That's exactly what it is. After they hung up, Nathan sat in his office, a small room off the main garage bay that still smelled like fresh paint, and let himself feel the full weight of the past 2 months. He'd lost his old garage, found a new one, accepted help from strangers and enemies alike, adopted a grumpy old cat, started having coffee with a woman he'd every reason to hate but somehow didn't. None of it made sense on paper. But life wasn't paper. Life was messy and complicated and full of people who were both terrible and wonderful, depending on what they chose in any given moment. And right now, in this moment, Nathan chose to believe that things were going to be okay. Not perfect, never perfect, but okay. And maybe for people like him, that was enough. 3 months after opening the Riverside location, Nathan stood in his garage at closing time watching the last customer drive away and realized he couldn't remember the last time he'd checked his bank account with dread. The business was working, not spectacularly, he wasn't getting rich, but steadily. Enough to pay rent, keep the lights on, put food on the table without calculating which bills to skip. Enough to breathe. Tommy locked the bay doors and tossed Nathan a beer from the mini fridge they'd installed in the office. Good day, boss. Yeah, good day. They stood there drinking in comfortable silence, and Nathan thought about how different this felt from those desperate weeks at the old location. How the weight on his chest had slowly lifted, degree by degree, until he could almost pretend he'd never been drowning. His phone buzzed. Scarlett. Mason wants to know if Emma can come to his birthday party next Saturday. It's at our place. Very low key. Just a few kids from his school and his physical therapist's daughter. No pressure if it's too much. Nathan read the message twice. Their coffee meetings had continued every Thursday, like clockwork. But this was different. This was crossing into actual friendship territory, into each other's real lives beyond those 2-hour conversations at Rosie's. Let me ask Emma. He found his daughter in the office, doing homework at the desk they'd set up for her. Gerald the Great was draped across her backpack like a furry paperweight. Hey baby, what would you think about going to a birthday party on Saturday? For that kid I told you about. Mason. Emma looked up, interested. The one who likes dinosaurs? That's him. Will there be cake? Probably. Then yes. She went back to her math worksheet. Can Gerald come?
I don't think birthday parties allow cats. That's discrimination. Nathan smiled. That's reality. Gerald will survive a few hours without you. Saturday arrived with the kind of perfect spring weather that felt designed for birthday parties. Nathan drove Emma to the address Scarlett had sent, a neighborhood he'd never been to, where houses had actual yards and driveways that fit more than one car.
Scarlett's place was a 2-story colonial with a basketball hoop over the garage and a garden that looked professionally maintained. Not mansion-level wealth, but comfortable in a way that reminded Nathan they still lived in different worlds. Mason answered the door wearing a birthday crown and a smile that took up his entire face. He'd gained weight since Nathan first met him, and his skin had lost that translucent sick kid quality. He looked like a normal 5-year-old instead of someone fighting for survival. You came! Mason grabbed Emma's hand without hesitation. Come see my dinosaur collection. I got 3 new velociraptors this week. Emma looked back at Nathan, uncertain. Go ahead. I'll be right here. The kids disappeared upstairs in a thunder of footsteps, and Nathan was left standing in the entryway feeling awkward and out of place. The house was nice, hardwood floors, furniture that matched, artwork that probably cost more than his truck, but it didn't feel sterile. There were toys scattered in corners, finger paintings on the fridge, normal life happening despite the expensive backdrop. Scarlett appeared from the kitchen wearing jeans and an old t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked more relaxed than Nathan had ever seen her. You made it. Yeah, Emma's upstairs inspecting the dinosaur collection. Mason's been preparing his presentation all week. Fair warning, it's comprehensive. Emma can handle it. She once listened to a librarian talk about dolphins for 45 minutes without getting bored.
Scarlett laughed. They'll be fine then. Come on, I'll introduce you to the other parents. The party was small, maybe 10 kids total, a handful of parents drinking coffee in the kitchen while the children played upstairs. Scarlett introduced Nathan as my friend, and nobody questioned it. They were all just tired parents, grateful for a few hours of adult conversation while their kids burned energy elsewhere.
Nathan found himself talking to Mason's physical therapist, a woman named Rachel, who had a daughter Emma's age. Mason's made incredible progress, Rachel said. 6 months ago, he could barely walk across a room. Now he's running, climbing, completely himself again. Scarlett said the treatment worked.
The treatment helped, but honestly, I think having his mom actually present made the bigger difference. Kids heal faster when they feel secure. And Mason went from anxious and withdrawn to confident and happy once Scarlett started prioritizing him.
Nathan glanced across the kitchen where Scarlett was refilling coffee cups and laughing at something another parent said. She looked nothing like the woman who'd coldly dismissed him from her lobby. That person had been all edges and armor. This version was softer, more real. She's changed a lot, Nathan said. She told me you helped with that you taught her how to be present. I don't think I taught her anything. She just decided to show up. Sometimes that's the same thing. Upstairs, someone shrieked with laughter. Footsteps pounded. A parent yelled, "No running!" without much conviction. Normal. Beautifully, chaotically normal. The party moved outside for cake and presents. Mason blew out candles shaped like the number 6 while kids screamed the birthday song off-key. He opened gifts with genuine enthusiasm. Dinosaur books, a telescope, art supplies, a new chess set. Emma gave him a card she'd made herself, covered in crayon drawings of dinosaurs and spaceships. Inside, she'd written in her careful handwriting, "Happy birthday, Mason, from your friend Emma and Gerald the Great, my cat." Mason read it 3 times, then hugged Emma so hard she squeaked. "I love it. Can I meet Gerald sometime?" "Maybe. He doesn't like strangers much. But you seem nice, so he might make an exception." Nathan caught Scarlett watching them with an expression he couldn't quite name. Something tender and sad and grateful all mixed together. As the party wound down and parents collected their sugar-crashed children, Nathan found Scarlett in the kitchen washing dishes. "You don't have to do that," she said as he grabbed a towel to dry. "I know, but standing around feeling useless is worse." They worked in silence for a few minutes, the sounds of kids playing in the backyard filtering through the open window. "Thank you for coming," Scarlett said quietly. "It meant a lot to Mason, having Emma here." She had fun. I think they're actually going to be friends. Is that weird for you, given our history? Nathan thought about it. Honestly, yeah, a little, but also no. They're kids. They don't care about corporate evictions and lobby incidents. They just like each other. And us, are we friends? The question hung there, vulnerable in a way Scarlett's questions rarely were. I think so, Nathan said. I mean, we have coffee every week and you invited me to your house. That feels like friendship. But you still haven't forgiven me. No, I haven't. Scarlett set down the plate she'd been washing. Will you ever? I don't know. Maybe. Nathan dried a mug carefully. Forgiveness isn't a switch, you know? It's not like one day I wake up and decide you're absolved of everything. It's more like every time I see you trying to be better, every time you choose your kid over your company, every time you show up as an actual human instead of a corporate machine, it gets a little easier to let go of the anger. So I have to earn it. Everyone has to earn it. That's how trust works. Scarlett nodded slowly. Fair enough. They finished the dishes, and Nathan collected Emma from the backyard where she and Mason were explaining to a golden retriever puppy, apparently the promised adventure companion, that sticks were for fetching, not eating. That's Captain? Nathan asked. Adopted him last week. He's still figuring out how everything works. Scarlett watched Mason rolling in the grass with the dog. But Mason loves him, sleeps in his bed every night. They're inseparable. Like Emma and Gerald. Exactly. Emma didn't want to leave, but Nathan promised Mason could visit sometime, which seemed to satisfy both kids. They said their goodbyes with the kind of elaborate ritual only children consider necessary. Handshakes and high fives and promises to show each other their respective pets. On the drive home, Emma chattered nonstop about the party. About Mason's dinosaur collection and Captain the puppy and the cake that had chocolate and vanilla layers. Nathan listened, making appropriate sounds, feeling something warm settle in his chest. His daughter was happy. Making friends. Moving forward. Maybe they both were. The Thursday after the party, Nathan arrived at Rosie's to find Scarlett already there with 2 coffees and an envelope on the table between them. What's this? He asked, sitting down. Open it. Nathan opened the envelope. Inside was a check for $40,000. He stared at it, not understanding. It's the profit Whitmore Development made from the sale of your old building, Scarlett said. Well, your portion based on the square footage your lease covered. I had our accountants calculate it. It's yours. I can't take this. It's not charity. It's what you're owed. We displaced you, made money off that land, and you got nothing. That's not right. Scarlett, I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not trying to buy redemption or clear my conscience or whatever you think this is. Her voice was firm. I'm trying to make things right, as much as I can. This money belongs to you. Nathan looked at the check. $40,000. Enough to hire another mechanic, upgrade equipment, maybe even save some for Emma's future. Enough to transform struggle into stability. Why now? He asked. Because Mason asked me if you were poor. And I realized he'd picked up on something I'd been trying to ignore. That the financial gap between us is huge, and pretending it doesn't exist doesn't make it fair. Scarlett leaned forward. You lost your business because of my company. The fact that you landed on your feet doesn't erase that harm. This doesn't either. But it's a start. Nathan set down the check. If I take this, what does it mean? It means you accept payment for damages caused by my business decisions. That's all. Not forgiveness? I'm not trying to buy forgiveness. I'm trying to pay a debt. Nathan thought about it. About pride versus practicality. About the difference between charity and restitution. About what he'd tell Emma if she were in this situation. He picked up the check. Thank you, he said quietly. Scarlett's smile was relieved. You're welcome. They drank their coffee, and the conversation shifted to easier topics. Mason's progress in chess. Emma's obsession with teaching Gerald tricks that cats were biologically incapable of learning. The way parenting was simultaneously harder and more rewarding than either of them had expected. Mason asked me yesterday if I was happy, Scarlett said. Just out of nowhere. Mom, are you happy? What did you say? I said yes, and realized I actually meant it. She looked down at her mug. I used to measure happiness in achievements. Successful deals, good press, quarterly growth. But
Those things never actually made me happy. They just made me successful. There's a difference. What makes you happy now? Mason laughing, Captain destroying my furniture, chess games I lose, coffee with you every Thursday. Small things that don't look impressive on paper but feel like everything. Nathan understood completely. Emma reading to Gerald, customers coming back because they trust my work. Having enough money to say yes when Emma asks for ice cream. You're right, it's the small stuff. When did we get so old that small stuff became everything? I don't think it's about age. I think it's about finally understanding what matters. Scarlett raised her coffee cup. To understanding what matters. Nathan clinked his mug against hers. And to being terrible at chess. Speak for yourself. I've won twice now. Out of how many games? Irrelevant. They laughed, and Nathan felt the last remnants of anger dissolve. Not forgiveness yet. That would come slowly, earned through continued effort and changed behavior. But something close. Acceptance, maybe. The recognition that people were complicated and capable of growth. And sometimes the person who hurt you could also be the person who helped you understand what healing looked like. 2 weeks later, Nathan hired his third mechanic, a young woman named Lisa, who'd just gotten out of trade school and needed someone willing to train her. With the money from Scarlett's check, he could afford to pay her decently while she learned. The garage was thriving. Tommy handled most of the complex jobs. Lisa was picking up skills faster than Nathan expected, and Nathan himself had started leaving at 5 p.m. instead of working until midnight. Turns out businesses could run without killing yourself. Who knew? He picked up Emma from after-school care, and they went home together. A new apartment Mrs. Nguyen had helped him find, bigger than the old one, with a yard where Emma could play and a landlord who allowed cats. Gerald had claimed the sunniest window as his domain and spent most days judging the world from his perch. Emma did homework at the kitchen table while Nathan made dinner, actual dinner, not cereal or takeout, and they ate together talking about their days. Mason invited me to the dinosaur museum on Saturday, Emma said. Can I go? Yeah, I'll check with Scarlett, but I think that should work. Are you and Mason's mom friends now? Nathan considered the question. Yeah, I think we are. But you were mad at her before. I was. What changed? Nathan set down his fork. She changed. And I changed. We both decided that being angry was less important than being kind. Emma processed this with her characteristic seriousness. Like when Mia at school said my drawings were ugly, but then she apologized and now we're friends again. Exactly like that. Okay, I understand. Emma returned to her dinner. I'm glad you're not mad anymore. You smile more now. The observation hit Nathan hard. He hadn't realized how much his stress had affected Emma, how she'd been watching him, measuring his happiness, worrying in the way kids worry when they can't fix their parents' problems. I'm sorry if I made you worry, baby. It's okay. You were going through a hard time. That's what Mason's mom said. She said sometimes adults have hard times, but it doesn't mean they stopped loving us. Scarlett said that? Yeah, when we were at the museum last time and you and her were talking. She told me and Mason that grown-ups sometimes get stressed, but it's not because of kids. It's because of grown-up stuff. Nathan made a mental note to thank Scarlett for that. After dinner, Emma read in her room while Nathan sat on the couch with Gerald purring in his lap. His phone buzzed with a text from Scarlett. Museum on Saturday works. I'll pick up Emma at 10. Sounds good. Fair warning, she's been researching dolphins all week. She's going to have opinions. Mason has been researching plesiosaurs. This should be interesting. May the most prepared kid win. Nathan smiled at his phone. 6 months ago, he'd never have imagined texting casually with Scarlett Whitmore. Never have imagined their kids being friends. Never have imagined any of this. But life had a way of surprising you, sometimes with catastrophes, sometimes with small mercies that accumulated into something like joy. Saturday morning, Scarlett arrived at 10 sharp. Mason burst out of the car before she'd even put it in park, practically vibrating with excitement. Emma, I brought my dinosaur book, the one with all the ocean reptiles. Emma came running out with her dolphin encyclopedia. I brought mine too. Did you know dolphins can sleep with half their brain awake? Did you know plesiosaurs weren't actually dinosaurs? They were marine reptiles. The kids compared notes while Nathan and Scarlett stood by the car, amused.
This is going to be educational chaos, Scarlett predicted. The best kind of chaos. You want to come? To the museum? I know you probably have work, but Nathan thought about the transmission waiting in the garage, about the list of things he should be doing. Then he thought about Emma's face when she talked about the museum, about Mason's enthusiasm, about the fact that he could afford to take a Saturday off for once. Yeah, I'll come. Scarlett's smile was bright. Great, I'll drive. The museum was packed with families, kids running between exhibits, while exhausted parents tried to keep up. Mason and Emma made a beeline for the ocean life section, dragging the adults behind them. They spent 3 hours there. Nathan learned more about marine biology than he'd ever intended. Emma and Mason took turns reading exhibit placards to each other, debating whether dolphins or plesiosaurs would win in a fight. Scarlett bought overpriced snacks from the cafe and didn't even blink at the cost. At one point, standing in front of a massive whale skeleton, Mason grabbed Nathan's hand. "This is the best day," he said simply. Nathan looked down at this kid who'd fought through illness and fear and come out the other side still capable of joy. "Yeah, buddy, it really is." After the museum, they got lunch at a diner where the kids ordered pancakes even though it was 2 p.m. and nobody questioned it. Emma and Mason sat on one side of the booth, heads together, still discussing ocean creatures. Nathan and Scarlett sat on the other side, drinking coffee and watching their children be children.
"Thank you," Scarlett said quietly. "For what?" "For giving me another chance. For not holding grudges. For letting our kids be friends even though I gave you every reason to hate me. I didn't do it for you, I did it for Emma. I know, but it still matters." Scarlett paused. "I'm not the person I was 6 months ago, and I know saying it doesn't make it true. But I'm trying, every day, to be someone Mason can be proud of. Someone who doesn't measure worth in profit margins. I can see that. Do you think—" She stopped, started again. "Do you think I'll ever stop being the villain in your story?" Nathan thought about it honestly. About the lobby incident and the eviction and the desperate months that followed. About Scarlett showing up at his apartment broken. About the coffee meetings and the changed priorities and the genuine effort to be better. "I think you're already not," he said finally. The villain was the person who couldn't see past her own ambition, who valued success over people. That's not who you are anymore. Then who am I? Someone trying to figure it out, same as me, same as everyone. Scarlett's eyes were bright. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me in years. You need better friends. I'm working on it, currently have one, hoping to keep him. Nathan smiled. Yeah, I think you will. They drove home as the sun set, painting the city gold. Emma fell asleep in the back seat next to Mason, both of them exhausted from museum excitement. Nathan sat in the passenger seat watching the familiar streets pass by, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not happiness exactly. That was too simple. But a deep sense that things were okay. That life was messy and hard and unfair, but also beautiful and surprising and full of people trying their best. Scarlett pulled up to Nathan's apartment. He carried Emma inside while she mumbled sleepily about dolphins. Gerald greeted them at the door with his usual indifferent meow. After tucking Emma into bed, Nathan came back outside where Scarlett was waiting by her car. Today was good, she said. Yeah, it was. Same time next week? Coffee at Rosie's? I'll be there. Scarlett hesitated, then stepped forward and hugged him. It was brief and slightly awkward and completely genuine. Thank you, Nathan, for everything. You're welcome. She drove away, and Nathan stood in his driveway watching the taillights disappear. Behind him, his apartment glowed warm. Inside, his daughter slept safely. His cat was probably destroying something. His garage was stable. His life was full. Not perfect. Never perfect. But enough. The next morning, Nathan woke to Emma sitting on his bed with Gerald. Daddy? Yeah, baby? I had a dream about Mommy last night. Nathan's chest tightened. Yeah? What was she doing? She was smiling, and she said she was proud of us, that we were doing good even though things got hard. Emma paused. Do you think she would be? Proud of us? Nathan pulled his daughter close. Yeah, Em, I think she would be, because Sarah had taught people English and organized community dinners and believed in helping others even when you had nothing to give. She'd built something that outlasted her death, a network of kindness that had caught Nathan when he fell, and Nathan was trying to do the same.
To teach Emma that struggle didn't mean failure, that accepting help wasn't weakness, that people could hurt you and still deserve another chance, that life was complicated and messy, and the best thing you could do was show up and try. "I miss her," Emma whispered. "Me too, baby. Every day. But we're okay now, right?" "Yeah, we're okay." Later that week, Nathan stood in his garage at closing time. The space was clean, organized, humming with the evidence of honest work. On the wall, he'd hung the old Harbor Mechanics sign from the original location, a reminder of where they'd been, what they'd survived. Tommy came by to grab his jacket. "Heading out, boss. See you Monday. Have a good weekend." "You too. Hey, Lisa did great today. That brake job was perfect. She's learning fast." After Tommy left, Nathan locked up and drove home. On the way, he passed Rosie's Diner and Whitmore Development's headquarters and the old neighborhood where his first garage had been. The building was gone now, replaced by the skeletal framework of luxury condos. He didn't feel anger looking at it anymore, just a distant acknowledgement that life moved forward whether you wanted it to or not. The trick was moving with it instead of getting crushed beneath it. At home, Emma was teaching Gerald to high five. The cat tolerated this with the patience of someone who'd learned that resistance was futile. "He almost did it," Emma exclaimed. "Watch." Nathan watched his daughter and her cat and felt grateful in a way that had nothing to do with money or success or any measure of achievement he'd once thought mattered. His phone buzzed. "Scarlett, Mason wants to know if Emma can come to the park tomorrow. Something about a critical dinosaur consultation. Emma will need to check her schedule, but I think she's available. Tell her to bring Gerald. Mason wants them to meet. Gerald doesn't do parks, or outside, or anywhere that isn't the sunniest spot in the apartment." "Fair enough. Just Emma, then." Nathan smiled at his phone, then set it down and joined Emma on the floor. "Gerald's not going to high five," he said. "He might. You have to believe." "I believe in a lot of things, baby, but Gerald high-fiving isn't one of them." Emma laughed, and Gerald looked at both of them with the supreme judgment only cats could achieve. Outside, the sun was setting. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. A difficult repair, a bounced check, Emma's math homework that neither of them understood. But tonight, they were here together, trying to teach a cat to high five, and that was enough. Because in the end, that's what Nathan had learned. That life wasn't about the big moments or the dramatic victories. It was about showing up, being present, choosing kindness when anger was easier, accepting help when pride said to suffer alone, believing that people could change and deserve the chance to prove it. Scarlett had been the villain in his story, but she'd also become the friend who understood what it meant to rebuild yourself from pieces, who knew what it cost to prioritize people over profit, who was learning, same as him, that being a good parent mattered more than being a successful one. And Nathan had been the victim, but he'd also become someone who could accept help without resentment, who could forgive without forgetting, who could build a new life from the ruins of the old one, and maybe, just maybe, help someone else do the same. They weren't heroes, just two exhausted single parents trying not to screw up their kids while barely holding their own lives together. But they were trying, and in a world that often rewarded ruthlessness over compassion, that felt like revolution. Emma finally gave up on the high five and settled for petting Gerald, who purred despite his best efforts to remain aloof. "Daddy?" she said. "Yeah? I'm glad we didn't give up when things got hard." "Me too, baby. And I'm glad Mason's mom stopped being mean. She's actually nice now. People can change when they decide it matters more than being right." Emma nodded seriously. "Like in stories, when the bad guy becomes good. Real life isn't quite that simple, but yeah, kind of like that." Gerald yawned, displaying impressive fangs, and Emma giggled. Nathan sat there on his living room floor, cat purring, daughter laughing, knowing that tomorrow he'd wake up and do it all again. Work and worry and struggle and joy in equal measure. But tonight he was here, and that was enough. Outside his window, the city hummed with life. Somewhere in that noise, Scarlett was probably putting Mason to bed. Mrs. Nguyen was closing up her building. Tommy was having dinner with his girlfriend. Mrs. Chen was watching her shows, all of them connected by invisible threads of kindness and community and the simple recognition that nobody survived alone. Nathan's phone buzzed one more time. A text from Scarlett. Thank you again. For today. For everything. I know I say it a lot, but I mean it. I know you do. That's why it matters. See you Thursday. See you Thursday. Nathan set down his phone and looked at Emma, who'd fallen asleep against Gerald. He picked her up carefully. She was getting too big for this, but not quite yet, and carried her to bed. Gerald followed, claiming his spot at the foot of Emma's mattress like the tiny furry dictator he was. In his own bed, Nathan lay awake for a while, thinking about the journey from that lobby encounter to this quiet moment. About how much had changed, how much had stayed the same. He still worried about money, still worked too hard, still screwed up as a parent more often than he'd like to admit. But he also had a business that was working, a daughter who was thriving, a friendship that had emerged from the wreckage of conflict, a community that had caught him when he fell. And he had the understanding, hard-won and painful, that life's value wasn't measured in what you achieved, but in how you treated people when achieving it. Scarlett had learned that too, had chosen her son over her empire, had restructured her entire life around what mattered instead of what impressed. They were both works in progress, probably always would be, but they were progressing. And maybe that was the only story worth telling. Not redemption or revenge or any clean narrative arc. Just two people who'd hurt each other, learning to be better. For their kids. For themselves. For the simple reason that cruelty was easy and kindness took work, and the work was worth it. Nathan closed his eyes and let himself drift toward sleep. Tomorrow would come with its challenges and chaos and small victories. But tonight, he was okay. They were all okay. And in a world that often felt designed to break people, that felt like winning.